Chapter 991. Trivial Matters? Yi Xian muttered to himself in shock. Then he smiled knowingly and said, "This is indeed a trivial matter to me, but it is a disgrace to the celestial court. The two are inextricably linked. I am also considering what to do." "Are you going to kill them?" Fatso Huang's expression was uncertain. He had followed Yi Xian for the longest time and understood Yi Xian's temperament the best. Today, there seemed to be laughter and a joyous atmosphere. But Fatso Huang knew that in the next moment, this family of four would die without a burial ground. Yi Xian could completely sense Fatso Huang's nervousness. This made him smile and say, "A man cannot stand tall without his word. In the past, I promised Yaoyue's grandfather that I would take good care of her for the rest of her life. This is also why I took her in as my adopted sister." Hearing Yi Xian's words, Fatso Huang sighed inwardly. It seemed that his master did not have the intention to kill them. This made him relax slightly. "However, I am a little curious. You have followed me for many years, and have always acted viciously and mercilessly. You have never let off the old, the weak, the women or the children. Why have you suddenly become compassionate today?" Yi Xian was a person who never trusted others, but if there was someone he trusted, it would definitely be Fatso Huang. Yi Xian also regarded Fatso Huang as his trusted aide, so he naturally valued Fatso Huang. "Ai." Fatso Huang smiled bitterly and sighed softly. "Sir, I spend all my time in the celestial court. I watched Yaoyue grow up. How can the tens of thousands of years of feelings disappear just like that?" Hearing Fatso Huang's words, Yi Xian was slightly taken aback. Then he shook his head self-deprecatingly and said, "It seems that the word love really is harmful. Even you are not exempt from it. However, you are right. When people stay together for a long time, they will inevitably develop feelings for each other. It is a pity that Yaoyue and I rarely spend time together. In fact, we do not have much feelings for each other. This also makes her respect me to the extreme. So it is inevitable that we are somewhat distant. Sir, I have something to say, but I do not know if I should say it." Fatso Huang hesitated and finally could not help but speak. Yi Xian smiled and said, "Is there anything that cannot be said between you and me?" "Sir, please forgive me." Fatso Huang first bowed and then said in a low voice, "In the past, Linger's family of 3 died in front of Sir. This is Sir's pain in the past. This subordinate really does not wish for the matter of the past to repeat itself." As Fatso Huang's words fell, Yi Xian's expression changed. A murderous aura suddenly flowed out of his body. Clearly, Fatso Huang's words had disturbed the calm lake in his heart. "Fatso Huang, you are becoming more and more presumptuous," Yi Xian said coldly in a low voice. Fatso Huang knelt and kowtowed to Yi Xian. His expression was extremely solemn as he said, "Sir, this subordinate just does not wish to see you repeat the mistakes of the past. I do not wish to see this family of 4 being separated. Whether it is the reputation of the celestial court or trivial matters, with your current status, who would dare to say anything? Sir, you once told me that if I want to gain the respect of others, then I have to become stronger. The so-called external objects and reputation are just empty words. Only by becoming stronger can others revere and look up to you. I understand. You are pleading for Yaoyue?" Yi Xian frowned slightly. "Sir, if you order me to kill this family of 4 right now, Fatso Huang will definitely not show any mercy. However, I really do not wish to see the matter of the past repeat itself. After Linger's death, this subordinate saw you grieving alone every day. This subordinate really does not wish for you to experience this again," Fatso Huang said sorrowfully. "Get up." Yi Xian slowly helped Fatso Huang up. He became silent, and a self-deprecating smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. "Fatso Huang, I was the one who created the celestial court. Yaoyue is also my adopted sister. With such a scandal, I have to give the celestial court an explanation. How about this? I'll make a bet with you. As long as Li Yuan can pass my test, I'll help his family of 4. This can be considered as you pleading for them. What do you think?" "Sir, how do you want to bet?" Fatso Huang asked with a trembling voice. In the boundless secular world, there are many emotions and desires. If Li Yuan can overcome the desires of Immortal, then this bet will be considered your win. However, if he falls into the desires of the secular world, then I can only harden my heart and kill them. Even Yue has no need to live, Yi Xian said softly. But Li Yuan is only immortal. How can he? Fatso Huang frowned and spoke hesitantly. Fatso Huang was once immortal. He understood the complexity of the human heart all too well. Although Li Yuan was unyielding, how could he resist the surging desires of the secular world? So this is a bet. I'm giving them a chance because of you. It's up to you whether you want to bet or not, Yi Xian said with a faint smile. All right, this subordinate will bet with Sir this once, Fatso Huang said with a trembling voice. Looking at Fatso Huang's solemn expression, Yi Xian smiled knowingly. In truth, there were some things that he did not tell Fatso Huang. It was only because he was in a hurry that he decided to make this bet. Actually, from the beginning to the end, Yi Xian had never thought of killing this family of 4. Just as Fatty Huang had said earlier, with his current cultivation and status, no one in the world would dare to disobey him. Why would he care about the gazes of others? Although he did not have a deep relationship with Yi Yaoyue, Yi Yaoyue was still his adopted sister. Yi Xian had even promised Yaoyue's grandfather to take care of her. But the most important reason was that Ling Er's death was one of the regrets of his life. He had been forced by the situation to lead to the tragedy of the past. The current Yi Xian was no longer the Yi Xian of the past. Yi Yaoyue was also no longer the Ling Er of the past. She had only found someone she liked, even if the other party was only immortal. The so-called immortal and mortal could not be united was nothing more than a joke in Yi Xian's eyes. He had never really cared about this matter. However, Fatso Huang did not know Yi Xian's thoughts. Instead, he thought that Yi Xian wanted to kill this family of 4. This was why he had pleaded for mercy for them. In the vast world, only he was the most powerful. Yi Xian wanted to be free and unfettered. Even the heavenly Tao could not restrict him. When had he ever really cared about his so-called reputation and the opinions of others? In fact, after saying so much, Yi Xian's true thoughts were not on this matter. Instead, he had other thoughts. This was because he was very interested in Li Yuan. The so-called test actually had another purpose. This matter was related to Yi Xian's future cultivation and also related to one of his great enemies. However, Yi Xian was not sure if Li Yuan could pass his test. Another digression. Yi Xian's path seemed to be ruthless, but his ruthlessness was built on those who stood in his way. Anyone who stood in his way was mercilessly killed by Yi Xian without exception. Chapter 992. In the human world, Yi Xian had left his mother and sister for the sake of his own cultivation. He had personally killed his childhood sweetheart, Xia Qingzhu, because he did not want his relationship to affect his cultivation. He had even killed the fairy of moon frost to overcome the second tribulation of the heavenly way. However, the union between Yi Yaoyue and Li Yuan did not affect him at all. Yi Xian was not a killing machine. So what reason did he have to kill this family of 4 for no reason? Could it be that Yi Xian had a hobby of killing his own family? Or was he just a pervert? Yi Xian was a person, a living person. Although he had abandoned many things on the path of cultivation, including his family and love, he was not an animal without intelligence. That was all. The lone moon hung high in the sky. The night was hazy, and the stars dotted the night sky. Strands of moonlight poured down, illuminating the entire courtyard. In the courtyard, Yi Xian stood with his hands behind his back. Yi Yaoyue knelt in front of him. Her face was rather pale, and her heart was filled with anxiety and unease. Brother, I know I was wrong. I only ask that you show mercy and let Yu Yun and the child go. Yaoyue is willing to return to the celestial court with you, Yi Yaoyue said with a trembling voice. Yaoyue, are you very afraid of me? Yi Xian helped her up as a trace of self-mockery appeared on his face. I don't dare, but you need to give the celestial court an explanation. I also know that I've shamed the celestial court in you, so I'm willing to bear all the consequences. I only ask that you don't take your anger out on Yu Yin and the child, Yi Yaoyue said in a choked voice. When a person stood at the peak, all that was left was loneliness. Whether it was the so-called family or friends, they would gradually drift away and look up to this person. Now, Yi Xian truly understood what it meant to be lonely at the top, because he could see the nervousness and reverence in Yi Yaoyue's eyes. She no longer had the admiration she had for him as a child. Heaven and earth are vast, and the four seas are vast. From the celestial court to the underworld, there is no need for me to account to anyone in the three realms of heaven, earth and man. Yi Xian smiled faintly. Big brother, you? Yi Yaoyue was already prepared to leave with Yi Xian, but when she heard Yi Xian's words, she froze on the spot. Since Li Yuyan is the husband you chose, he is also my brother-in-law. The two children also call me uncle. It doesn't matter if he is a mortal or an immortal. This is an indisputable fact. However, I really want to know if he is qualified to be your husband. So I will stay here and take a good look. Yi Xian said with a smile. Thank you, big brother, for helping me. The sudden surprise made Yi Yaoyue choke with sobs. She really didn't expect Yi Xian to help her. This made her eyes overflow with tears of excitement. Her heart was filled with gratitude towards Yi Xian. You and I are siblings, why do you need to thank me? Yi Xian said softly. Time passed day by day. In the blink of an eye, half a year had passed. In this half a year, Yi Xian and Fatso Huang had completely settled down in Lotus Village. They even built a thatched cottage and lived next door to the family of four. Rural life was peaceful and comfortable. It could be said that it was a good place to cultivate one's mind. In this half a year, Li Yuyan and Yi Xian became more familiar with each other. Almost every day, Li Yuyan would personally visit Yi Xian and chat with him. He even called him big brother. The two children shuttled between the two thatched cottages every day. From time to time, they could hear bursts of laughter. Yi Yaoyue was still a little worried. However, after half a year, no one from the celestial court came. Yi Xian also didn't have any intention of bringing her back to the celestial court. This gradually made Yi Yaoyue feel relieved. Finally, a long-lost smile appeared on her face. However, Fatso Huang was still worried. This was because he had never forgotten his bet with Yi Xian. However, after half a year, Yi Xian still hadn't made the slightest move. However, in this half a year, the two children recognized Fatso Huang as their adoptive father. This made Fatso Huang dote on the two children even more when he was worried. It could be said that this made him feel both pain and joy. Li Yan was indeed a scholar. He came to visit Yi Xian almost every day. He was just short of staying at Yi Xian's place every day. He simply regarded Yi Xian as a celestial being. He even forgot about his wife and children. Li Yan couldn't be blamed. After all, Yi Xian had cultivated for almost 200,000 years. Whether it was medical divination, astrology, astronomy, or geography, it could be said that he knew everything. If Li Yuyan had any questions, Yi Xian would be able to answer them. This was simply unimaginable for Li Yuyan. He completely regarded Yi Xian as his teacher. On this day, half a year later in the thatched cottage, elder brother, in 3 days, Yuyan will enter the capital to take the exam. When Yuyan returns from the imperial examination, I will definitely not forget elder brother's kindness in teaching me for half a year. Li Yuyan bowed 3 times to Yi Xian and said, Yuyan's talent is not shallow. He will definitely be able to pass the imperial examination. It just so happens that elder brother has nothing to do. Why don't I accompany a worthy younger brother to the capital? Yi Xian said with a faint smile. Husband, aren't we living very well right now? The so-called scholarly honor is just a false reputation. Why don't we? Yi Yaoyue was slightly tactful. Clearly, she didn't want Li Yuyan to enter the capital to take the exam. Sigh. Li Yuyan sighed and said, My wife, you are wrong. Although we scholars have no strength, we have a passionate heart to serve our country. Otherwise, if I, Li Yuyan, didn't do anything after reading the books of the sages for so many years, wouldn't I have failed the teachings of the sages in the books? This? Yi Yaoyu didn't know what to say. She knew that Li Yuyan had always wanted to be in the imperial examination. And even more, he wanted to bring happiness to the people. This was also his greatest wish. If she tried to stop him now, it would only make him unhappy. If it was before, Yi Yaoyue would naturally support him. But now her elder brother was here. Why would he care about the so-called scholarly honor of mortals? Yuyan is right. A man should aspire to travel far. It is time for Yoyun's ambitions to be realized. Elder brother supports you. Yi Xian smiled. Elder brother understands me. Li Yian laughed heartily. She truly viewed Yi Xian as her lifelong confidant, and even viewed him as a teacher and a friend. Okay. Although Yi Yaoyue was unwilling and felt that something was wrong, even Yi Xian agreed. She didn't dare to object. Like this, the matter was settled. Fatso Huang helplessly shook his head. He knew that the bet between him and Yi Xian was about to truly begin. 3 days later, just as dawn broke, a carriage stopped outside Lotus Village. Under the gazes of Yi Yaoyu and the 2 children, Yi Xian's group of 3 also boarded the carriage. Amidst the billowing dust, the carriage gradually disappeared into the distance. Husband, you have to come back safely. Yi Yaoyu bit her lips. There was a deep sorrow in her eyes. Chapter 993. Dongsheng Divine Continent Aolai. Aolai was a large country in the Dongsheng Divine Continent. It could be said that it was a place blessed by outstanding people. Its capital was the center of Aolai. High officials, nobles were not few in number in the capital. If a commoner wanted to join the ranks of these nobles, the only way was to pass the imperial examination. Therefore, the imperial examination became the only way for commoners to advance. They studied hard for 10 years in order to stand out in the imperial examination and be placed in an important position by the imperial court. Capital. More than a year had passed since Yi Xian accompanied Li Yuyan to the capital. Just the journey from Lotus Village to the capital took them half a year. The mountains were high and the rivers were long. Evil people ran amok, and there were even cases of demons eating people. Li Yian experienced too many unimaginable hardships along the way. Robbers, demons, heavy rain, and all kinds of natural and man-made disasters accompanied Li Yuyan. He even caught a cold on the way to the capital and almost died. Commoners were extremely bitter. Students from all over the country gathered in the capital for the imperial examination. Students from wealthy families were better off, as they could afford to hire guards to protect them. They also had a guarantee of basic necessities. However, if they encountered demons and ghosts, they could only sigh at their own bad luck. Commoners were even worse. They lacked food and clothing on the long journey. They could fall sick and be killed by robbers. They had to go through many difficulties to reach the capital. Therefore, the first test of the imperial examination was the journey to the capital. Countless commoners died along the way. Li Yian had never traveled far before. This half a year of travel almost took his life. It really made him understand what was called suffering in the world. Fortunately, every time Li Yian almost died, he was lucky enough to survive. Of course, this was all thanks to Yi Xian and Fatso Huang. After half a year of traveling, Li Yian no longer had the ambition he had when he first left Lotus Village. He was like a frosted eggplant wilting. His body was weak, his body was thin, and his face was pale. It was as if a gust of wind could blow Li Yuyan to the ground. Lai Fuan was very famous in the capital because it only received students coming to the capital for the imperial examination. It could also be said that it was a gathering place for scholars. The reason why the Lai Fuan was so famous was that it was completely free of charge. It provided free food and lodging for students from all over the country, and also allowed students from all over the country to have a place to stay in the capital. Inside the inn, Yi Xian and the other 2 were eating. There were some simple steamed buns, vegetables, and a bowl of porridge. Big brother Yi, big brother Huang, we have to eat more. The Lai Fuan doesn't provide dinner. Li Yian finished the porridge in one gulp. Not even a drop of rice was left. Yian, the imperial examination is in half a month. Your body is too weak. You have to eat more to have the strength to study. Yi Xian sighed softly and handed a steamed bun to Li Yuyan. Big brother, you can't. You only had a bowl of porridge yesterday. You must have been hungry for a long time. Yuyan can't eat this steamed bun. Li Yian flatly refused. It's fine. Your big brother has practiced some martial arts before. It's fine even if I don't eat for 3 to 5 days. But your body is too weak. If you don't eat, how can you have the strength to study? Don't you want to pass the imperial examination and enter the imperial examination? Yi Xian reprimanded. Big brother, I. Li Yuyan's eyes were red, and his nose was a little sour. If it wasn't for Yi Xian taking care of him in every possible way, he might have already died on the road. He still clearly remembered that a group of bandits blocked the road. It was Yi Xian and Fatso Huang who forced them to retreat. He also suffered many knife wounds. He remembered all of this in his heart. Yuan, I'm not hungry either. Hurry and eat these 2 steamed buns. Fatso Huang sighed softly, and also handed the steamed bun in front of him to Li Yuyan. Alright, you're a man. Why are you being so shy? If I tell you to eat, just eat. When you become the imperial examination, you can pay me back 10 times or 100 times. Yi Xian smiled faintly. Big brother, I'll eat. Li Yian ate the steamed bun with tears in his eyes. Yi Xian and Fatso Huang also finished the porridge in their bowls. In reality, this porridge was only a bowl of water with rice in it. How could it really fill their stomachs? Of course, Yi Xian and Fatso Huang didn't need to eat. All of this was just for Li Yian to see. The Lai Fu Inn only provided 1 meal a day. Yi Xian and the other 2 had traveled for half a year to reach the capital. They had already used up all of their traveling expenses, which was why they were in such dire straits. Of course, it wasn't just Li Yuan. The other poor students were also in a similar situation. If it wasn't for the Lai Fu Inn, these poor students would really be in dire straits. Poor students had it hard, but scholars had it even harder. Passing the imperial examination was their only way out. Big brothers, wait for me here. Yin will be back soon. Looking at the pitiful rice in Yi Xian and Fatso Huang's bowls, Li Yuyan's heart was extremely desolate. He seemed to have made some sort of decision. Gritting his teeth, he left the square table. No one knew what he was going to do. Teacher, Li Yuyan has experienced a year of suffering in the world. His arrogance has been polished. Why don't we just let it go? Fatso Huang probed. Greed, anger, infatuation, resentment, love, separation, desire. This is only the beginning. Let us continue watching, Yi Xian said with a faint smile. In a side room of the inn, Li Yuyan's face was sometimes red and sometimes pale, as if he was going through a choice in his heart. But in the end he gritted his teeth, picked up the bag containing the brush, ink, paper, and inkstone, and walked out of the room. Then he quickly left the inn. Teacher, where is he going? In the air, Fatso Huang asked in surprise. Let's follow him and see, Yi Xian said with a faint smile. Xingwang Temple. The Xingwang Temple was an extremely lively and bustling area of the capital. From the royal palace to the common people, there was an endless stream of people coming to the Xingwang Temple every day, burning incense, praying and praying. On both sides of the street, there were peddlers peddling their wares. One could even see fortune-tellers and storytellers talking with assurance. Lively voices rose and fell one after another. Li Yian sat in front of a square table with a red face. A banner was erected beside him. On it were 2 large words, selling paintings. Clearly, Li Yian could not bear to see Yi Xian and Fatso Huang live on a diet for him. He came to the Xingwang Temple to sell some of his paintings for some money. It was a disgrace to the refined, and associated with the stench of money. It had to be known that in Aolai, the scholars all boasted of being virtuous. If they appeared in public and sold their paintings for a living, they would be looked down upon by the other scholars. This was also why there were so many poor scholars in the Lai Fu Inn. They would rather eat the free food of the Lai Fu Inn once a day than take their paintings out to sell. This kid is very considerate. Fatso Huang slightly glanced to the side. There was a hint of praise in his eyes. The suffering of mortals is the suffering of life. He can understand the difficulties of life, but this is only the beginning. Yi Xian said softly. Time passed little by little. Although it was very lively in front of the Xingwang Temple, Li Yian did not have an easy time. After a full hour, he had not sold a single painting. Chapter 994. The other vendors were all shouting their wares, and the passers-by knew what they were selling. But Li Yian was just sitting there. Who would know that he made a living by selling paintings? Also, Li Yian was just a poor scholar. Why would anyone ask about his paintings? Hey, are you a scholar? Suddenly, an old woman wearing hemp clothes came to Li Yuyan. She looked at Li Yuyan with confusion. Li Yuyan's face was slightly red, but he quickly stood up and bowed. I am indeed a scholar. Auntie, do you want to buy a painting? I am illiterate. If I buy your paintings, I can't eat or wear them. What would I buy them for? The old woman in hemp clothes smiled. Then you are? Li Yian was startled. My son is far away at the border fighting a war. He sent someone to send a letter back. But this old woman is illiterate. I want to ask you to read it for me. It would be best if you could send a letter back to my son. Only then did the old woman reveal her purpose. I see. Li Yian nodded slowly. His eyes were filled with disappointment. But he was kind and said, Where is the letter? I will read it for you. Okay. Thank you so much. The old woman smiled gratefully. She quickly took out the letter and handed it to Li Yian. Li Yian opened the letter and read it to the old woman. This made the old woman cry. She kept thinking about her son who was far away at the border. Auntie, I have finished writing the letter. You just need to send someone to deliver it to your son. Li Yian handed the letter to the old woman. The old woman was so grateful that she kept bowing to Li Yian. Child, Auntie doesn't have any money to thank you. Here are 2 meat buns that were just given to me by a rich family. You must accept them. As the old woman spoke, she took out 2 paper buns from the bamboo basket she was carrying. The aroma of meat buns filled the air. Without waiting for Li Yian to refuse, she stuffed the buns into Li Yian's hands. Then, she quickly walked away from Li Yian's stall. This? Looking at the 2 meat buns in his hands, Li Yian was speechless. His eyes were filled with gratification and self-mockery. He was gratified that he was able to use his own 2 hands to exchange for food. But he was self-deprecating that a dignified scholar like himself had fallen into such a situation. Gulp. The aroma of the meat buns woke Li Yian up. He swallowed his saliva and carefully put the 2 meat buns into his bag. Obviously, he was really hungry, but he knew that Yi Xian and Fatso Huang were hungrier than him. These 2 meat buns were also left for Yi Xian and Fatso Huang. Wait a little longer. Someone will definitely buy my calligraphy and paintings. Once I get the money, my 2 brothers and I won't have to suffer so much. It was the beginning of spring, and the weather was still a little cold. Li Yian's body was already weak. He hugged his arms and shivered in the cold wind. His lips were already a little pale, but he still insisted on waiting for the next customer. Sir, Seeing this scene, Fatso Huang's eyes were filled with pity, but before he could finish, Yi Xian lightly shook his head and said, Have you done what I asked you to do? Yes, but. Fatso Huang couldn't bear it and couldn't continue. No buts. Don't forget our bet. Yi Xian coldly said, Yes, sir. Fatso Huang reluctantly agreed. He could only pray for Li Yian in his heart. In front of the city god temple, Li Yian was shivering in the cold. He kept rubbing his hands to warm himself up, but the thin clothes on his body didn't allow him to feel any warmth at all. Hey, are you a scholar? Suddenly, a voice sounded in front of Li Yian's stall. 3 young masters were looking at Li Yian with a puzzled expression. I am a scholar. Do you want to buy some calligraphy and paintings? Seeing that there were customers, Li Yian quickly cupped his hands and bowed to the 3 people. Humph, you are a disgrace to the educated. Since you are a scholar, why do you have to associate with stinky money? You are really ruining the reputation of us scholars. One of the young men coldly scolded. He was wearing a brocade robe. At a glance, one could tell that he was either rich or noble. At this moment, he looked at Li Yian with eyes full of disgust and contempt. Being scolded by this person with disdain, Li Yian's face turned red. He also felt humiliated, but he still cupped his hands and bowed. Brother, you don't know. I have studied hard for 10 years, just to pass the imperial examination. But the journey to the capital is long. I have already used up all my traveling expenses. Big brother and second brother have been living frugally for me, and have been hungry for several days. As a scholar, I won't bend my waist for stinky money, but I can't bear to see big brother and second brother starve. So I came up with this plan. I want to sell some calligraphy and paintings to get some money to feed my 2 brothers. Is what you said true? Suddenly, another youth with delicate features opened his mouth and asked. Every word is true. Heaven and earth can bear witness. Li Yian cupped his hands and bowed. What a joke. A disgrace to the educated is a disgrace to the educated. No matter how much you say, It can't change the fact that you are a disgrace to the educated. The young man in the brocade robe sneered. Then, he turned to look at the young man and said, "Young Master Xian, we should leave this kind of person who associates with stinky money. Otherwise, wouldn't it dirty our eyes?" Unfortunately, the young man didn't respond to this person's suggestion. Instead, he smiled at Li Yuyan and said, "I wonder if brother can let me see your calligraphy and painting?" Originally, Li Yuyan was ashamed and angry. But not only did the young man not leave, he also wanted to see his calligraphy and painting. So Li Yuyan could only hand a calligraphy and painting to the young man. The young man slowly pushed Li Yuyan's calligraphy and painting away. In just 3 short breaths, the young man's eyes lit up, and he said good 3 times. The brush moves like dragons and snakes. The painting style is unique. What a splendid mountain river painting. The young man was full of praise. His face was full of love. One had to know that he was born with a noble background. He had seen many famous works. Although Li Yuyan's calligraphy and painting couldn't be compared to those famous works, there was a kind of pure and refined artistic conception contained in the calligraphy and painting. If there was an expert to guide Li Yuyan's future achievements would be limitless. "Brother, how much do you want for this splendid mountain river painting?" The young man took the calligraphy and painting in his hand and looked at Li Yuyan with a face full of appreciation. 10 taels of silver. Li Yuyan's face was flushed red. "What? 10 taels of silver?" The young man was stunned. Five taels is also fine. I really can't go any lower," Li Yuyan said with a flushed face. He thought the young man thought the price was too high, and this was his final bottom line. Looking at Li Yuyan's flushed face, the young man suddenly realized. He hurriedly cupped his hands and said, "Brother, you misunderstood. Brother's masterpiece is worth 10,000 taels of silver. A mere 10 taels of silver is simply an insult to brother. If brother trusts me, I'll bring this calligraphy and painting back first. Wait for me here tomorrow. I'll definitely send someone to deliver 10,000 taels of silver," the young man said solemnly. Obviously, this young man was born with a noble background. This time, he didn't bring a single copper coin. However, he loved Li Yuyan's calligraphy and painting so much that he didn't want to let it go. "Brother, take the calligraphy and painting. 10,000 taels of silver is too much for me. You only need to deliver 10 taels of silver tomorrow." For his calligraphy and painting to be valued by a fellow scholar, this was a great affirmation for Li Yuyan. He offered the calligraphy and painting with both hands, then picked up his luggage and left the Xingwang temple. "This person is so strange. Isn't he afraid that I'll cheat him?" The young man was in a daze. He didn't think that Li Yuyan would trust him so much and give him the calligraphy and painting. Chapter 995. Elder brother, I've returned. Li Yuyan returned to the Laifu Inn with a flushed face. When he saw Yi Xian and Fatso Huang, he hurriedly handed the 2 meat buns in his bag to them. "Yuyan, where did you get the money to buy food?" Yi Xian pretended to be confused. "Elder brothers, please listen to me carefully." Very soon, Li Yuyan told them about what had happened today. Yi Xian and Fatso Huang naturally knew what had happened, but they still sighed emotionally. Sigh. A worthy younger brother is a scholar, but he showed himself in public for the 2 of us. This really makes us feel ashamed, Yi Xian said with some self-blame. "Brother, please eat the food quickly. If it weren't for the 2 of you taking care of me along the way, I'm afraid that Yu Yin would have already died of illness along the way. I will never forget the kindness that you've shown me," Li Yuyan said sincerely. "Yuyan, do you think that young master who promised you 10,000 taels of silver really isn't a swindler?" Fatso Huang asked meaningfully. "No, this young man is a righteous person. He should come from a famous family. As a scholar, he wouldn't lie to me," Li Yuyan said with certainty. "All right, let's not talk about this. I have something to give you today. The 2 of us should take our leave," Yi Xian said softly. "What is it?" Li Yuyan was surprised when he heard that Yi Xian and Fatso Huang were about to leave. He hurriedly asked anxiously, "Where are you going? Are you not going to accompany Yuyan? All good things must come to an end. It's time for us to leave. If fate wills it, perhaps we'll meet again." As Yi Xian spoke, he took out a scripture from his bosom and handed it to Li Yuyan, saying, "This scripture isn't some sage's book. It's just a method of maintaining one's health. Your body is weak to begin with. If you can comprehend this method of maintaining one's health, it won't be difficult to prolong your life in the future." Li Yian took the scripture in a daze. He flipped to the first page in a daze and murmured to himself, "Boundless secular world technique? That's right. This scripture is called the boundless secular world technique. There are 9 great realms of health in it. If you can comprehend the first level, that will be the day we meet again," Yi Xian said with a smile. "Don't worry, elder brother. Yian will definitely study it well. I will definitely live up to elder brother's expectations." Li Yian solemnly put away the boundless secular world technique. At this moment, Fatso Huang's eyelids suddenly twitched. A look of surprise flashed across his eyes. He never thought that Yi Xian would actually let Li Yian comprehend the boundless secular world technique. The boundless secular world technique was something that belonged to Luo Ho. This technique was on par with the Immortal scripture. Back then, Yi Xian and Luo Ho had exchanged scriptures. Fatso Huang had witnessed it with his own eyes. Logically speaking, this kind of precious scripture should be comprehended by Yi Xian himself. But why did he pass the boundless secular world technique to Li Yian today? He couldn't figure it out, and he couldn't understand it. A huge question grew in Fatso Huang's heart. The boundless secular world, 9 disasters descend. Yian, you have to take care of yourself. Yi Xian strolled out of the Laifu Inn. But before he left, his words were unfathomable. Fatso Huang quickly followed Yi Xian. Only Li Yian held the scripture in a daze and didn't say anything. By the time he came back to his senses, Yi Xian and Fatso Huang had already disappeared. The boundless secular world, 9 disasters descend? Li Yian muttered to himself. His eyes were filled with confusion. It was obvious that he couldn't understand the meaning of this sentence. In the void, there was no shadow and no form. Yi Xian sat cross-legged in the void. Fatso Huang stood beside him. It was just a mirror image of heaven and earth in front of the two. Li Youyan's every move was also observed by the two. "Sir, why did you? You want to ask why I passed on the boundless secular world technique to him?" Yi Xian said with a slight smile. "Hee," Fatso Huang said with a flattering smile. "Sir's intentions are naturally not something that I can guess. The boundless secular world bewitches the eyes and disturbs the eyes. When will it stop?" Luo Ho's boundless secular world technique came from the fate of the human tribe. He also gave me an incomplete technique. But he forgot that the most suitable person to practice the secular world technique is the mortal, who is immersed in the world of mortals. I've studied this technique for tens of thousands of years and have come to a final conclusion. This technique only focuses on artistic conception and not cultivation. If one can pass through the 9 disasters of the secular world, one can become the saint of all saints and control the legendary power of karma. Li Yian is awe-inspiring and has a body of iron. He knows how to be grateful and has a kind heart. If such a pure person enters the boundless secular world, he can pass through the first disaster of the secular world, if he is not confused by all kinds of desires. Lu Jie said tirelessly, "Are you going to take him as your disciple?" Fatso Huang was shocked and looked at Yi Xian with great astonishment. "No." Yi Xian shook his head. He narrowed his eyes and looked at Li Yian in the mirror image of heaven and earth. He murmured, "If he can pass through the first disaster of the secular world, he will be of great use to me. Whether I can take the crucial step all depends on him." Yi Xian paused for a moment, and then continued in a low voice. "But if he can't pass through the first disaster of the secular world, he can only die in my hands because I will not allow a good-for-nothing to become Yaoyue's husband. And Yi Yaoyue will be imprisoned in the celestial prison forever because of him." This? Fatso Huang was shocked and sucked in a breath of cold air. He didn't expect Yi Xian to give Li Yian such a difficult problem. "Sir, the boundless secular world technique is on par with your immortal scripture. They can be called the 2 most powerful techniques in the world. Li Yian is just a mortal. How can he pass through the first disaster of the secular world? Whether he can pass through it or not depends on himself. I think Luo Ho should have already passed through it, right?" Yi Xian's eyes were deep, as if he could see through the boundless void, and see a person struggling in the secular world, but transcending it. Sir, why are you doing this? Fatso Huang couldn't understand Yi Xian's actions. Even if Li Yuyan passed through the first disaster of the secular world, what good would it do for Yi Xian? Unfortunately, Yi Xian didn't answer Fatso Huang's question, because this was his biggest secret, and also related to something extremely important to him. The space-time seed. That's right, the space-time seed. Yi Xian cultivated for 30,000 years in order to fuse the space-time divine ability and the space-time divine ability into a space-time divine ability seed. Unfortunately, 30,000 years of hard work was useless. These two powers were clearly separated and couldn't be fused. However, during these 30,000 years, Yi Xian didn't come out empty-handed. He finally found a way to fuse the two powers. The power of karma. Yes, the power of karma. The power of karma was a power that transcended heaven and earth. It was also the most mysterious power. Time and space were of the same origin. They couldn't be fused together, because they lacked an opportunity. This opportunity was the power of karma. Only the power of karma could reconcile these two powers. To make a simple analogy, water and fire couldn't coexist. However, as long as there was a vessel carrying water, and a flame burning under the vessel, the water would boil. Similarly, the power of space-time was the same. The two couldn't coexist. Therefore, a vessel was needed to reconcile these two powers and completely fuse the power of space-time into one. This vessel and opportunity was none other than the power of karma. As long as Li Yuyan could pass through the first disaster of the secular world, a trace of the power of karma would be born in his body. This was exactly what Yi Xian needed. Chapter 996. Moreover, this was only one of Yi Xian's goals. There was another goal that was related to Luo Ho, but he would not go into detail here. However, Li Yuyan carried Yi Xian's hope. If he couldn't pass through the first calamity of the mortal world, then he wouldn't have any value at all. Yi Xian wouldn't hesitate to kill someone who didn't have any value. In fact, Yi Xian seemed to be neither fast nor slow, but he was more anxious than anyone else. This was because his cultivation was already at the peak of the 4 tribulations of the heavenly Tao, and he was about to pass the 5 tribulations of the heavenly Tao. Yi Xian had a premonition that the 5 tribulations of the heavenly Tao were extremely terrifying. If he did not have the help of the power of time and space, he would probably fall between heaven and earth. The 9 tribulations of the heavenly Tao were fatal. Each tribulation was a life or death tribulation. A single misstep would cause one's soul to scatter and die. Yi Xian had a deep understanding of the terror of the 9 tribulations of the heavenly Tao. Li Yuyan, you are someone I value. If you disappoint me, not only will you lose your wife and child, you will also die without a burial ground. Yi Xian looked at Li Yuyan in the mirror image of heaven and earth, his voice cold and heavy. Lifeuin. Li Yuyan was concentrating on studying the scripture, with the help of the boundless secular world technique. However, this scripture was too obscure and difficult to understand. Even though Li Yuyan had read the 4 books and 5 classics, he only had a smattering of the contents. The boundless secular world, life and death reincarnation in a single thought. Li Yuyan was puzzled and puzzled. These mysterious scriptures gave him a headache. He had been trying to understand them for half a day, but he still had no clue. In fact, Li Yuyan did not know that the boundless secular world technique was not something that could be comprehended. It required one to experience many desires in the secular world before one could truly step into the threshold of this technique. At this moment, he had not even touched the surface. Perhaps only by experiencing the boundless secular world could he understand the profound meaning described in this scripture. Who's Li Yuyan? Suddenly, he heard a clamor coming from the Lifeuin. Li Yuyan was startled. He was just a student who came to the capital to take the exam. Who would know his name? May I know who is looking for me? Li Yuyan put away the boundless secular world technique and strode out of the room. He saw the 3 youths from yesterday appear in the lobby of the inn. You really are here. When the handsome young man saw Li Yuyan, his face lit up with joy. Li Yuyan then remembered his appointment with the young man at the city god's temple yesterday. Brother, please forgive me. I was too engrossed in my studies and forgot about our agreement. Li Yuyan quickly walked in front of the young man and cupped his hands in a salute with an apologetic look on his face. If it wasn't for your signature on the painting, I would have guessed that you were at Lai Fuin. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to find you. The young man smiled. Here, this is 10,000 taels of silver. I specially came to give it to you today. The young man directly took out a silver note. Indeed, there were 10,000 taels of silver written on it. However, this also made Li Yuyan stunned. He hurriedly refused and said, Brother, don't joke around. How can a mere painting be worth 10,000 taels of silver? Just give me 10 taels of silver. If I say it's worth 10,000 taels of silver, then it's worth 10,000 taels of silver. Brother, don't be modest. Quickly accept the silver note. The young man said seriously, Brother, I appreciate your kindness. However, I can't accept this silver note. I only want 10 taels of silver. Li Yuyan directly refused the silver note with a resolute and decisive look. The young man who looked like a manservant suddenly became angry and said, Hey, my master! Cough. The handsome young man hurriedly coughed lightly. Suddenly the manservant paused and said, My master said 10,000 taels of silver. Then it's 10,000 taels of silver. Why don't you take the money? Brother, I appreciate your kindness. However, too much money is useless to me. I only need 10 taels of silver. If I can pass the imperial examination, I will return the 10 taels of silver. This painting will be my gift to you. Li Yuyan said seriously. Humph. The young man in the brocade robe said with a cold and disdainful face. You're just a poor scholar. You still deliberately mystify and treat money like dirt. Do you really think you can pass the imperial examination? Brother, yesterday you repeatedly spoke ill of me. Li Yuyan, don't think I have offended you. Don't go too far. As the saying goes, even a person made of clay has 3 points of anger, let alone Li Yuyan. This made him reprimand the young man in the brocade robe coldly. How dare you? Being reprimanded by a poor scholar like Li Yuyan made the young man in the brocade robe angry. One had to know that his father was the prime minister. No one dared to speak to him like this. Lin Feiyan, don't go too far. Suddenly the handsome young man frowned and said, Xian you? Good. Lin Feiyan was so angry that he sneered again and again. He glared at Li Yuyan, and also hated Li Yuyan in his heart. Since you don't want the 10,000 taels of silver, I, Li Xian, want to be friends with you. Xiao Wan, give me 10 taels of silver. Li Xian ordered the manservant next to her. The manservant also quickly took out 10 taels of silver and handed it to Li Xian. Brother, I'll lend you these 10 taels of silver. When you pass the imperial examination, you must return it to me. Li Xian smiled and said, Of course. Li Yuyan laughed heartily. Waiter, prepare a banquet. Today, I want to drink with Brother Yuyan until we're drunk. Li Xian casually threw out an ingot of silver, causing all the scholars in the inn to raise their eyebrows. Under Li Xian's warm invitation, Li Yuyan could not refuse. They exchanged cups and talked about everything under the sun. Lin Feiyan kept drinking, and occasionally looked at Li Yuyan with cold eyes. Li Xian and Li Yuyan regretted not meeting each other earlier. They both admired each other's knowledge. I didn't expect Brother Yuyan to be so knowledgeable. I'm afraid that Brother Yuyan will definitely win the imperial examination today. Li Xian said, slightly drunk. 10 years of hard work, just for the imperial examination today. If Yuyan can pass the imperial examination, he will definitely benefit the people. Li Yuyan said powerfully. Good. Li Xian clapped her hands and cheered. She raised her cup and said, This cup of wine is for Brother Yuyan. I'm waiting for you to pass the imperial examination. The two drank the wine in their cups. The manservant next to Li Xian looked at the sky outside. He lowered his voice and said to Li Xian, Young master, it's already late. Master is still waiting for you at home. Let's quickly go back. Li Xian nodded. Although she was reluctant to leave, she knew that she had to go. Today, I felt like old friends at first sight. In the future, I will ask for your advice. Li Xian cupped her hands and bowed. She called out to Lin Feiyan and the manservant and left the inn. Li Xian, and the other two's behavior of coming and going as they pleased didn't bother Li Yuyan too much. However, he did admire Li Xianxian's knowledge. He was also very pleased to have made such a friend in the capital. However, Li Yuyan didn't know that he had already angered Lin Feiyun today. Lin Feiyun was the son of the prime minister and an influential figure in the capital. This brought him great humiliation and caused his simple nature to change greatly. It also caused a series of events to occur later. Of course, everything that happened to Li Yuyan was within Yi Xian's control. The appearance of these three was also Yi Xian's doing. Chapter 997. Time passed quickly, and there were only 7 days left before the imperial exam. During this period of time, Li Xianxian went to see Li Yuyan almost every day. This made the two of them quickly call each other brothers, and their relationship became even better. The 4 books and 5 classics, astronomy and geography, the two of them talked about everything and regretted not having met earlier. However, the closer Li Xianxian got to Li Yuyan, the more unfriendly Lin Feiyun looked at Li Yuyan. However, he did not dare to do anything to Li Yuyan. After all, he could not afford to offend Li Xianxian. However, Lin Feiyun already had a grudge against Li Yuyan and set up a dead end. He only needed to wait for Li Yuyan to step into the trap. In the Lifuan, Brother Yuyan, tomorrow is the imperial exam. I believe that you will definitely be the top scorer. At that time, we will meet in the throne room. Li Xianxian raised his wine cup and drank it in one gulp. A worthy younger brother's auspicious words. You and I will be the top scorer together. At that time we can also visit the common people. Li Yuyan said loudly, and also drank his wine. On the day of the imperial exam, the entire capital became extremely lively. A large number of students rushed to the scholar pavilion, because the examination hall was located there. In the examination hall, Li Yuyan sat upright. Although he was slightly nervous, he was still full of confidence. He believed that with his knowledge, he would definitely be the top scorer. However, Li Yuyan was slightly regretful that he did not see Li Xianxian in the examination hall. Presumably, she should be in another examination hall. Answer the questions first. Ding ling ling. The examiner rang the golden bell, and the door of the examination hall slowly closed. A set of examination questions were given to each student. This also meant that the imperial exam had officially begun. The world is ruled by literature, and the country can be pacified by martial arts. If Confucianism uses literature to create chaos and martial arts to break the law, is there a good solution? Li Yuyan looked at the question in front of him and smiled slightly. This question was too easy for him. He immediately ground an ink stick and picked up a brush to write. Time passed bit by bit. As the golden bell rang again, the examiners collected the papers one by one, and the first round of the imperial examination ended. However, the imperial examination would last for 3 consecutive days. During these 3 days, the students were not allowed to leave the examination hall. Everyone had their own private residence. After the 3 days of examination, they could leave the scholar pavilion. Of course, if there were students who gave up, they could leave first. However, this would also mean that they would fall behind and have no chance to pursue an official career. The first day of the exam ended just like that. What Li Yuyan didn't know was that his exam paper wasn't placed with the other students, but was placed in front of someone else. In a separate room in the scholar pavilion. Lord Zhang, what do you think of Li Yuyan's results? Lin Feiyun casually passed the test paper in his hand to the person beside him. This person was wearing a second-rank official's robe. He was actually the Grand Secretary, who was in charge of the imperial examination, Zhang Chunshan. Good. What a good rule the country by law. When Zhang Chunshan finished reading Li Yuyan's test paper in one breath, he said the word good 3 times. His face was extremely excited. What? Did this person really answer the questions very well? Lin Feiyun said with a gloomy face. Unfortunately, Grand Secretary Zhang Chunshan didn't notice Lin Feiyun's expression at all. Instead, he praised with great emotion. It's not just good. It's simply a great talent in ruling the world. If the saints saw this essay, they would definitely place him in a great position. Whoosh! Suddenly, Lin Feiyan actually snatched the test paper from Zhang Chuanshan's hand. Then, with a gloomy face, he tore the test paper in half. Young Master Lin, why are you doing this? Grand Secretary Zhang Chunshan asked in shock. Lord Zhang, I remember that when you first entered the capital, it was my father who cultivated you vigorously. That's why you are a second-rank official today, right? Lin Feiyan said lightly. Yes, that's right. Prime Minister Lin's kindness. I will never forget it. Zhang Chunshan hurriedly made a fist salute, as if he vaguely understood Lin Feiyan's thoughts. This Li Yuyan has offended me. He can forget about becoming an official in this lifetime. Do you know what to do? Lin Feiyan said gloomily. I understand, but if people find out, I'm afraid Zhang Chunshan wiped the cold sweat on his forehead. He wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. You can rest assured. In the capital, other than His Majesty, my father is the most powerful. You can do whatever you want. I don't want to see this Li Yuyan again. Do things to the extreme. You must have a way. Of course. As long as you do this for me, I will personally go see my father. The position of Minister of Revenue will be yours. Lin Feiyan patted Zhang Chuanshan's shoulder, a cruel smile on his face. All right, since this test paper is excellent, you can put it under my name. Otherwise, it would be a pity to abandon it. Haha. Lin Feiyan laughed and left, leaving Grand Secretary Zhang Chunshan sighing. He secretly blamed this student called Li Yuyan for offending Lin Feiyan of all people. Li Yuyan, for my own career, I can only destroy you. In your next life, don't offend people you shouldn't offend. Zhang Chunshan murmured with a ruthless expression. If a scholar wanted to be ruthless, there was nothing a martial artist could do. Zhang Chunshan knew how deep the waters of the imperial court were. If he righteously rejected Lin Feiyan today, he might be demoted to a pauper tomorrow. Naturally, someone would do this for Lin Feiyan. Therefore, Zhang Chunshan went all the way. He already wanted to kill this student called Li Yuyan. Sir, I'm innocent. I really didn't cheat. This thing really isn't mine. In the examination room, two soldiers dragged Li Yuyan out of the examination room. Li Yuyan tried hard to explain to Zhang Chunshan. Unfortunately, Zhang Chunshan wronged him. Why would he listen to his explanation? Zhang Chunshan scolded coldly. He threw the test paper in Li Yuyan's face and said, Did I give you this answer? This? Li Yuyan was so angry that he couldn't speak. Today was the last exam. He was writing at a fast speed and was about to finish the paper. Suddenly, the examiner in front of him slapped the test paper in front of him and loudly scolded him for cheating. Before Li Yuyan could react, the examiner ordered the soldiers to arrest him. That was why this scene happened. How dare you, Li Yuyan? Where did you get this test paper? Why don't you tell me the truth? Zhang Chunshan scolded angrily. However, there was a trace of guilt in his eyes. Sir, I'm innocent. I'm really innocent. Li Yuyan's face and ears were red. It was obvious that he still hadn't figured out what was going on. He could only anxiously cry out for his innocence. What a bold madman. Take him to the imperial prison. Zhang Chunshan rebuked. Two soldiers escorted Li Yuyan out of the examination room. Chapter 998. In the prison of the Ministry of Justice. Slap, slap, slap. Whips flew through the air, lacerating his skin and flesh. The two jailers' leather whips were soaked in cold water, as they whipped Li Yuyan with all their might. Li Yuyan was just a weak scholar. How could he withstand such a vicious beating? His body was covered in blood, and he had already fainted. Did he plead guilty? Grand Secretary Zhang Chunshan entered the dark cell and asked the two jailers coldly. Sir, this scholar was very stubborn. He refused to plead guilty until his death. The two jailers were panting. Obviously, they were exhausted from the continuous whipping. Wake him up. Zhang Chunshan frowned and said. Splash. A basin of cold water was poured on Li Yuyan. He cried out in pain, and finally opened his eyes slowly. Why did you accuse me? When he saw Zhang Chunshan in front of him, Li Yuyan's eyes turned red and he roared. Obviously, after experiencing all this, he had realized that the examiner in front of him had wronged him. Li Yuyan, don't blame me. Who told you to offend someone you shouldn't have? Zhang Chunshan said coldly. Who? Who? Li Yuyan roared loudly and kept coughing up blood. After going through such a painful experience, he only wanted to know who had such hatred for him and wanted to kill him. It's me. Suddenly, a figure walked into the cell and looked at Li Yuyan with a smug expression. Lin Feiyun? Li Yuyan's eyes widened. He stared at Lin Feiyun with extreme anger. Why? 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 Lin Feiyun sneered. He walked to Li Yuyan and said, Do you know who Li Xianxian is? Let me tell you. She is the third princess of the emperor. She is also the emperor's favorite daughter. Do you know why now? Princess? Li Yuyan murmured, and a bitter expression gradually appeared on his face. He finally understood why he did not see Li Xianxian in the examination hall. It turned out that she was a woman, and a princess of the current imperial court. Since she's a princess, why are you accusing me? Li Yuyan asked in confusion. Li Yuyan, are you really stupid or just pretending to be stupid? Lin Yunfei sneered and said, Let me tell you one more thing. Princess Xianxian was originally my fiancée, but because of a dog like you, she actually begged the emperor to reject this marriage. Fortunately, my father is the prime minister of the day, and also an elder of 3 dynasties. The emperor didn't agree immediately, but instead made a bet with Princess Xianxian. If you can become the top scholar, then her marriage with me will be cancelled, and she will be betrothed to you. What a pity, what a pity. You won't have the chance anymore. Hearing Lin Feiyun's narration, Li Yuyan finally understood. This also made him laugh bitterly and say, Lin Feiyun, you despicable person. You think that you can marry her just because you accused me of cheating in the imperial examination. She will find out about your scheme sooner or later. Haha. Lin Feiyun laughed wildly. He looked at Li Yuyan as if he was an idiot and said, So what if she finds out? By the time she finds out, you will already be a dead man. Moreover, don't forget that my father is the prime minister of the current imperial court. His disciples are all over the world. Even the current emperor has to be wary of them. When the time comes, the princess will marry me. And this is a matter that is set in stone. You are just a poor scholar. Do you think Li Xianxian can avenge you? I'll kill you, Li Yuyan roared. His eyes were as red as blood. He looked at Lin Feiyun with eyes full of hatred. You piece of trash. Let's see how you'll kill me. Lin Feiyun snatched the whip from the jailer's hand and fiercely whipped Li Yuyan. Immediately, Li Yuyan's blood-curdling screams could be heard throughout the cell. Beat him to death for me. Lin Feiyun casually threw the whip to the jailer. The 2 jailers began to whip Li Yuyan again. Young master, he hasn't confessed yet. If he is beaten to death, it won't be good. Zhang Chunshan hurriedly said. Are you an idiot? Lin Feiyun scolded. I want his life. Do you really want him to confess? Just find a fake confession and put his fingerprint on it. Do you need me to teach you this? Yes, this lowly official understands. Zhang Chunshan repeatedly apologized, but his heart was cold. This Lin Feiyun treated human life like grass. He was simply inhumane. I'll leave this to you. I'm about to go to court to receive my title. I hope that by the time I return, he'll already be a dead man. Lin Feiyun said coldly. With a flick of his sleeve, he left the cell. Sir, he fainted. The jailer cautiously reminded. Didn't you hear young Master Lin's orders? Continue to beat him until he's dead. Zhang Chunshan coldly said. Outside the cell, Yi Xian and Fatso Huang stood side by side. Fatso Huang frowned and said, Sir, if this continues, Li Yuyan will be beaten to death. Die. Yi Xian faintly shook his head. He looked at Li Yuyan's miserable appearance and said in a low voice, I've already taught him the boundless secular world technique. If he can comprehend it, his body will naturally produce the power of the secular world. Naturally, he won't die. But if he can't comprehend the boundless secular world technique, then he can only die in this cell. Hearing Yi Xian's words, Fatso Huang's expression changed slightly. He said, But if he dies, won't Sir's plan fail? If he's just a good-for-nothing, what use do I have for him? Yi Xian coldly said. Imperial Palace, Throne Room. The civil and military officials were on one side. The current emperor was in the middle. Below him, 3 scholars were kneeling on the ground. They were the ones who had won the imperial examination. Good. Fei Yun is worthy of being the son of Prime Minister Lin. He won the imperial examination in one fell swoop. The current emperor praised him repeatedly. Prime Minister Lin's face was also flushed red. The civil and military officials were also repeatedly praising him. Lin Feiyun, who was kneeling in front of His Highness, was also very proud. Xian, what else do you have to say now? Feiyun is my son-in-law. You are not allowed to disobey my imperial edict. The current emperor laughed loudly. Li Xian stood beside the emperor. However, her face was extremely pale. This was because Li Yuyan was not among the three people below. This simply made her turn pale with fright. With Li Yuyan's talent, how could he not have won the imperial examination? Lin Feiyun, is this your doing? Suddenly, Li Xian seemed to have thought of something. Her charming face was filled with anger as she questioned Lin Feiyun. This was because Li Xian knew that Lin Feiyun had a lot to do with Li Yuyan not winning the imperial examination. This subject does not know what the princess is talking about. Lin Feiyun was already prepared. He showed a puzzled expression. Xian, you are too mischievous. Hurry up and leave. The emperor's face was angry. At this moment, all the civil and military officials were present. Li Xian's attitude was not disrespectful to the imperial family's etiquette. Father, it's impossible. Li Yuyan is very knowledgeable. Chapter 999. Xian, you're making too much trouble. Get out of here. The emperor was furious. Li Xian's attitude was a breach of royal etiquette. All the officials were present. Father, it's impossible. Li Yuyan is a learned man. How dare you? You're getting more and more presumptuous. Before Li Xian could finish, the emperor interrupted her angrily. Li Xian could only glare at Lin Feiyun with hatred. Feiyun, since you're the top scholar, your marriage with Xian should be put on the agenda, the emperor said sternly. Feiyun thanks your majesty. Lin Feiyun quickly kowtowed to express his gratitude. In the prison of the Ministry of Justice. How dare you lock him up here? What did you do to him? When Li Xian and Lin Feiyun entered the prison, Li Xian could no longer hold back her anger. She shouted at Lin Feiyun. Xian, don't forget that you're Lin Feiyun's fiancé. This is an imperial edict from your father. If you didn't beg me to see Li Yuyan for the last time, how could I bring you here? Lin Feiyun sneered. Go. He's in the cell in front. Lin Feiyun strode to the end of the prison. Li Xian quickly followed. When they arrived at Li Yuyan's cell, Li Xian exclaimed, how could you torture him to this extent? Li Xian said angrily, and rushed into the cell. However, when she lifted Li Yuyan's unconscious face, she screamed in fear. Li Xian kept retreating, because Li Yuyan's face in front of her was already badly mutilated. Li Yuyan's face had been disfigured while he was still alive. How could he still look as handsome as before? Haha. Lin Feiyun laughed viciously. Xian, see? This is your brother Yuyan. You're so vicious. Li Xian looked at Lin Feiyun with hatred. Tears kept falling from her eyes. Is this a worthy younger brother? Li Yuyan struggled to open his eyelids. A hoarse voice came from his mouth. He was already on the verge of death. I'm sorry. I hurt you. Li Xian's face was covered with tears. Lin Feiyun, I won't let you go even if I become a ghost. Li Yuyan's face was disfigured. His body was covered with wounds. His heart was like dead ashes. Only the strong hatred kept him alive. TSK. Lin Feiyun shook his head. He looked at Li Xian and said teasingly, Xian, don't you like him? Don't say that I, Lin Feiyun, didn't give you a chance. I can let him go. I can also take the initiative to reject this marriage with your imperial father. However, do you still want to marry him? Lin Feiyun, you bastard. Li Xian shouted angrily. She raised her hand and wanted to slap Lin Feiyun. Unfortunately, before she could hit Lin Feiyun, a big slap landed on Li Xian's face. Pa! Bitch! Li Xian was slapped to the ground. She was stunned. She didn't expect that Lin Feiyun would dare to hit her. You bitch! Do you really think that I will tolerate you just because you are a princess? Lin Feiyun stepped forward and grabbed Li Xian's hair. Then he dragged her in front of Li Yuyan. Come. Don't you like him? Lao Tzu will fulfill your wish. Look at this bloody face. Do you want to be with him? Lin Feiyun grabbed Li Xianxian's neck tightly and moved closer to her. A crazy and sinister laughter came from his mouth. No, don't. Li Xianxian screamed in fear. Li Yuyan's face was too scary. Li Xianxian didn't dare to look. Bitch. Pa. Lin Feiyun slapped Li Xianxian's face again. Then he stepped on Li Xianxian's face and continued to grind. Bitch. My father is the prime minister of the country. He has been a senior official for 3 dynasties. Most of the civil and military officials are my father's disciples. The military power of Aolai is controlled by my second uncle. If I didn't give in to you, who do you think you are in my eyes? Lin Feiyun said ferociously. He continued to grind Li Xianxian's beautiful face with his foot. He didn't have the slightest bit of tenderness for the fairer sex. Stop, you bastard! Li Yuyan roared. But it didn't have the slightest effect. Woo-woo! Li Xianxian cried. She was completely scared to tears by Lin Feiyun. She had never seen Lin Feiyun like this. He was like a demon. She was terrified. Outside the cell, Yi Xian silently watched this scene. However, his eyes were fixed on Lin Feiyun from the beginning to the end. A trace of admiration flashed through his eyes. Insidious, vicious, cruel, framing and black-hearted. Good, good, good. Yi Xian murmured softly. A smile appeared at the corners of his mouth, and he said good 3 times. Sir, you? Fatso Huang was shocked and looked at Yi Xian in surprise. Yi Xian's praise at this moment shocked Fatso Huang to the core. If there was anyone who knew Yi Xian best, it would be Fatso Huang. Fatso Huang had followed Yi Xian all the way from the human world to the earth immortal realm. He knew what kind of person Yi Xian was. He killed decisively, insidiously, and ruthlessly. He would kill anyone who stood in his way, no matter who they were. But such a person was actually praising Immortal at this moment. Moreover, it was from the bottom of his heart. Fatso Huang didn't dare believe it. Fatso Huang knew very well that Yi Xian was an extremely proud person. In the entire 3 realms, there were very few people who could win his praise. But Lin Feiyun had actually won Yi Xian's praise. Suddenly, Fatso Huang's expression changed drastically. It was as if a thunderclap had exploded in his mind. He suddenly looked at Lin Feiyun. So similar? Fatso Huang muttered in astonishment. He carefully looked at Lin Feiyun's savage and wild laughter. It was as if he was looking at someone. Yi Xian. Right, it was Yi Xian. Lin Feiyun's methods were actually extremely similar to Yi Xian's. They were both ruthless and insidious. Moreover, they didn't have any so-called protective feelings for the fairer sex. Even if she was a princess, he would wantonly humiliate her. At the same time, Lin Feiyun was usually refined and courteous. Even though he sometimes revealed the appearance of a profligate son that caused others to feel extremely disgusted, he was actually extremely similar to Yi Xian in many aspects. At this moment, Fatso Huang finally understood why Yi Xian would actually praise Lin Feiyun. It was because Yi Xian saw his own shadow in Lin Feiyun. Lin Feiyun, what a man! Even though he has many flaws, if he's properly molded, he'll definitely become a world-shocking figure in the future. Yi Xian smiled as he spoke in a low voice. Sir, you can't be thinking of? Fatso Huang hesitated, as if he had faintly thought of something. There's no rush. I want to see how far this Lin Feiyun can go. Things are getting more and more interesting. Yi Xian chuckled. He looked at Lin Feiyun, as if he was looking at a treasure. Chapter 1000. To be able to catch Yi Xian's eye, he definitely wasn't an ordinary person. He definitely had something extraordinary about him. Fatty Huang deeply believed in these words. In fact, Fatso Huang did not think highly of Lin Feiyun. Although the other party was vicious and merciless, he was too arrogant and despotic. This kind of person could bite back at any time. According to Fatso Huang's thoughts, this person would only have a path of death in his hands. Inside the prison, Lin Feiyun was savagely laughing. He was constantly stepping on Li Xianxian's face. His entire person seemed to have gone crazy, but there was also a sense of tyrannical excitement. Perhaps some people would ask, where did Lin Feiyun get the courage to humiliate the imperial princess like this? In fact, the reason was very simple. Lin Feiyun's father was the prime minister of the imperial court and was a senior official of Ao Lai for 3 generations. Most of the civil and military officials were disciples of Prime Minister Lin. Moreover, his second uncle was the Grand Marshal of Ao Lai's army. Therefore Lin Feiyun had the capital to be arrogant. The marriage between him and Li Xianxian was also a political marriage between the imperial family and his Lin family. Before Li Xianxian was betrothed to him, Lin Feiyun naturally had to act like a refined gentleman. However, things were different now. The emperor had personally issued an imperial edict to betroth Li Xianxian to him. As the saying goes, the words of the emperor were as good as gold. This matter was already set in stone, and there was nothing Li Xianxian could do to change it. Even if Li Xianxian reported today's matter to the current emperor, the imperial family was the most ruthless. The current emperor could not do anything to Lin Feiyun for a mere Li Yuyan. As for Li Xianxian's humiliation, the emperor could only turn a blind eye. Although Li Xianxian was a princess, in the end, she was only a tool for the marriage. The Lin family's power in Ao Lai was too great. The emperor did not even have enough time to appease them. So how could he punish Lin Feiyun? Lin Feiyun, if you have the ability then kill me. Li Yuyan roared hoarsely, but blood kept flowing out of his mouth. His hatred for Lin Feiyun had reached the extreme. Kill you? Lin Feiyun smiled cruelly. Now I've changed my mind. Killing you is too boring. I want you to become a cripple and live the rest of your life as a beggar in the capital. Men, break his legs and send him out of the prison, Lin Feiyun said cruelly. Yes. The 2 jailers hurriedly responded. Then they walked towards Li Yuyan with evil grins. Li Yuyan let out a miserable scream as his legs were broken by the jailers. Li Yuyan, hate me. I want you to hate me for the rest of your life. I want you to beg for death. Lin Feiyun smiled cruelly. At this time, Li Yuyan had already fainted from the pain. His breath was extremely weak. The 2 jailers dragged Li Yuyan out of the prison like a dead dog. Yuyan! Li Xianxian cried out sorrowfully. Humph, slut! If you weren't a princess, I would kill you today. If you still want your brother Yuyan, I can help you, haha. Lin Feiyun laughed wildly. He flung his sleeve and left the prison, leaving Li Xianxian crying bitterly. Let's go. Outside the prison, Yi Xian slowly walked towards the outside world. Fatso Huang quickly followed. Because whether Li Yuyan lived or died was very important to Yi Xian. On the streets of the capital, Li Yuyan was thrown on the street like a dead dog. His body was covered in blood, and he was completely unconscious. His breath was faintly discernible, and his body was gradually becoming stiff. Clearly, Li Yuyan's legs had been broken, and he had been whipped for several days. He was just a mere mortal, and it was not easy for him to hold on until now. However, he was hanging on to his last breath, and could die at any moment. Sir, if you don't save him, he will die. Fatso Huang's expression changed slightly. Wait! Yi Xian stared fixedly at Li Yuyan. He did not move, because success or failure depended on this one move. If Li Yuyan could comprehend the boundless secular world technique in the midst of death, then he would be able to save his own life. Otherwise, if he died, then so be it. He would be of no use to Li Yuyan. It was the beginning of spring, and the weather was still a little cold. The passers-by avoided Li Yuyan, and no one extended a helping hand. Instead, they took a detour around him with a look of disgust on their faces. Li Yuyan's body became stiffer and stiffer, and his breathing gradually stopped. After dozens of breaths, his entire body was motionless, as if he had really lost his life. Trash! Yi Xian growled coldly. His eyes were filled with great disappointment. He did not expect that Li Yuyan would not be able to survive this ordeal. Sir, look! Suddenly Fatso Huang exclaimed. This also startled Yi Xian. He abruptly looked at Li Yuyan. A trace of red light quietly appeared around Li Yuyan. Although the red light was extremely weak, it was actually present on Li Yuyan's body. Li Yuyan's originally stiff body began to slowly recover. The power of the secular world? Yi Xian murmured. The disappointment in his eyes gradually dissipated, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Good, I was right about you. Yi Xian nodded approvingly. Sir, did he really comprehend the boundless secular world technique? Fatso Huang asked in surprise. It's still early. He's just scratching the surface. If he wants to produce a trace of the power of karma in his body, he must pass through the first secular world tribulation. This is just the beginning. Yi Xian said softly. Come. Suddenly, Yi Xian stretched out his palm toward the sky. An extremely terrifying scene occurred. The originally clear sky suddenly darkened. Dark clouds gathered in the sky, accompanied by the rumbling of thunder. Crack! Dark clouds covered the sky, and thunder and lightning roared. A heavy downpour poured down. A large amount of rainwater violently poured on Li Yuyan's body, causing his body to convulse. The trace of the power of the secular world that he had just produced seemed to dissipate at any time. Sir Yu? Fatso Huang said in shock. Natural disasters and man-made disasters. If we don't force him into a corner, when will he be able to pass through the first secular world tribulation? Yi Xian said coldly. The heavy rain poured down, and the cold wind rustled. Li Yuyan slowly woke up in the heavy rain. His legs were already broken, so he could only crawl on the ground. The rain below him was dyed red by his blood. I can't die. I have to take revenge. Revenge! Li Yuyan screamed crazily. Although his voice was extremely weak, the hatred in it was frightening. Hatred could make a person strong, but it could also make a person crazy. Li Yuyan was in this state at the moment. He told himself that he must not die. He must live, and he must find Lin Feiyin to take revenge. Perhaps it was the support of hatred, or perhaps it was the boundless secular world technique. But Li Yuyan's vitality was ignited again. His eyes were full of the desire to live. Chapter 1001. Finally, Li Yuyan crawled under the eaves of a house. He leaned against the wall and gasped for breath. Wisps of weak power of the mortal world were constantly growing in his body. Where did this stinky beggar come from? Get lost! Suddenly, the door of the house was opened. An old woman was driving Li Yuyan away with a face full of disgust. She was whipping him with a bamboo stick in her hand. Big sister. I was framed by evil people. Please do me a favor. Li Yuyan spoke with difficulty and begged the old woman bitterly. Stinky beggar, get lost. Unfortunately, the old woman was extremely unruly. She kept driving Li Yuyan away with the bamboo stick in her hand. She had no pity for Li Yuyan at all. Only by experiencing all the hardships of the world and tasting all the emotions of the world can one develop a heart of the mortal world. His path has just begun. Yi Xian nodded secretly. The rain was getting heavier. Li Yuyan crawled miserably in the heavy rain. His palms were scratched and blood had already dyed his palms red. The old woman's expression also changed. She hurriedly spat and returned to her house. Heaven is unfair. Heaven is unfair. Li Yuyan roared in the heavy rain. But except for the sound of thunder and lightning, no one would pity him. Time was like water. Years flew by. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. In these 3 years, Li Yuyan had completely become a beggar, an extremely disgusting beggar. He had a demon-like face and a stinky body. He could only crawl on the ground every day. He even had to fight with dogs for food. If someone could reward him with a copper coin, Li Yuyan would be grateful to the point of shedding tears. Time was a butcher's knife. It could completely change a person. In these 3 years, Li Yuyan abandoned his so-called dignity in order to survive. He really began to beg like a beggar. He was no longer as proud as he used to be, nor was he as ambitious as before. Everything he did was for the sake of survival. This was the only belief in his heart. Dear uncles and aunties, please do me a favor. On the bustling street, Li Yuyan knelt on the ground and kowtowed. There was a broken bowl in front of him. Occasionally, a pitiful commoner would throw a copper coin to him, which made him repeatedly kowtow in gratitude. After 3 years of begging and experiencing the vicissitudes of life, Li Yuyan was already numb to it. Even if the sky collapsed and the earth collapsed, it would not affect him in the slightest. Whether it was ridicule, insults, or even beatings and humiliation, he had experienced far too much in the past 3 years. Xian, this is a former student of Li University. Don't you recognize him? A carriage stopped in front of Li Yuyan, and the bamboo curtain was slowly lifted. Lin Feiyin was wearing a dragon robe, and he was sneering. Li Xian was already a married woman, and there was a baby in her arms. Husband, it's all in the past. This person has nothing to do with us anymore. Let's go. Li Xianxian did not look at Li Yuyan. She kept coaxing the baby in her arms, and said softly to Lin Feiyun, "Come, this is the silver I reward you. It should be enough for you to have a good meal." Haha. Lin Feiyun casually threw out an ingot of silver, and there was a wild laughter coming from his mouth. The bamboo curtain of the carriage was slowly lowered, and it went far away. At this time, Li Yuyan picked up the silver in a daze, but before he could put it in his arms, several ruffians quickly surrounded him, kicked Li Yuyan to the ground, and took the silver from his hands. "You stinky beggar, are you worthy of taking young Master Lin's silver? Let's go, brothers. Let's go drink." The few hoodlums laughed and left Li Yuyan's side. Li Yuyan seemed to be used to it. He did not show any anger, but crawled on the ground until he disappeared in the bustling street. The world is full of suffering, and the heart is frozen. He should be almost there. Yi Xian whispered softly. In a dilapidated temple, Li Yuyan sat cross-legged beside the collapsed statue. Wisps of mortal qi circled around him, and an obscure wave of energy was spreading out from him. The human world is full of all things, and all things are ignorant. The rolling mortal world, and all things return to one. Li Yuyan suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were like thunder, and red thunder snakes crackled around him. Wisps of mortal qi covered him, and it turned into a huge cicada cocoon. Good. Buzz. In the void, when Yi Xian saw Li Yuyan's transformation, his face was filled with great excitement. He has mastered the first level of the boundless mortal world technique. When he breaks out of the cocoon and transforms into a butterfly, he will be reborn, and his body will produce a trace of the power of karma. Yi Xian whispered excitedly, "This Li Yuyan really didn't let you down," Fatso Huang said with a smile. Time passed little by little. Yi Xian and Fatso Huang waited patiently for Li Yuyan to be reborn. After 7 days and 7 nights, the huge cicada cocoon began to crack like a spider web, and a mysterious wave spread out. Bang! With a loud bang, the cocoon broke out of the cocoon and transformed into a butterfly. A slender figure appeared. Wisps of mortal qi pervaded the figure, and even the surrounding void began to distort. "I did it! Did I really succeed?" Li Yuyan stretched out his hands in a daze. His hands were as white as jade, and his pustular body was as smooth as a mirror. Wisps of the power of mortal qi rolled around his body, and Li Yuyan didn't recover for a long time. In the void, Yi Xian's brows were tightly knitted together. He stared at Li Yuyan, and a gloomy look appeared in his eyes. How is this possible? Why doesn't he have the power of karma in his body? Yi Xian roared angrily. No, there must be a problem somewhere. Yi Xian's 5 fingers quickly pinched together, and the time magic was cast. The scene in front of him kept rewinding to 3 years ago, and then deducing into the future. So that's how it is. Suddenly, Yi Xian woke up, and a look of understanding flashed across his eyes. "Sir, what did you find?" Fatso Huang asked in surprise. The so-called power of karma naturally has a cause and effect. That Lin Feiyun framed him 3 years ago, which caused him to suffer unimaginable pain and torture for 3 years. This is the cause that was planted by the two of them. Now that Li Yuyan has cultivated the first level of the boundless mortal world technique, he will definitely seek revenge on Lin Feiyun. And this is the result. It seems that I have to wait a little longer. Yi Xian whispered softly, but his brows were tightly knitted together. He fell into deep thought, as if he had thought of something. In the ruined temple, Li Yuyan slowly woke up, and the hatred that had been hidden for 3 years suddenly erupted. "Lin Feiyun, I want you to die without a burial place." Buzz! Li Yuyan took a step forward, and instantly disappeared from the ruined temple. When he cultivated the first level of the boundless mortal world technique, his cultivation was comparable to that of a primordial unity golden immortal, and he had long surpassed his former mortal body. From this, one could see how powerful the boundless mortal world technique was. Let's go, let's follow and take a look. Yi Xian woke up from his thoughts, and the two disappeared from the ruined temple, chasing after Li Yuyan. Chapter 1002. Ao Lai Ming Wang Fu. 3 years later, Lin Feiyun became Ming Wang. It could be said that he was second only to one person, and above tens of thousands. With a beauty by his side, he enjoyed all the glory and wealth in the world. Reporting to your highness, there is someone outside the mansion who wishes to see you. The mansion's housekeeper bowed to Lin Feiyun and reported. No. Lin Feiyun was flirting with a beauty and casually refused. Obviously, Lin Feiyun thought that it must be some official who wanted to see him for his own career. He didn't have the time to meet these boring people. Your Highness, he says he is an old friend of yours, and that he must see you. The mansion's housekeeper said. Oh. Lin Feiyun was slightly startled and said. Old friend? What is his name? Li Yian. The mansion's housekeeper quickly replied. Li Yian? Lin Feiyun muttered to himself. Then, he was suddenly shocked and his entire face instantly darkened. Brother Feiyun, did you forget me so quickly? Tap, tap, tap. A series of footsteps came from afar. In the blink of an eye, Li Yian appeared in front of Lin Feiyun. You are? Lin Feiyun abruptly rose to his feet as he stared fixedly at Li Yian's face. He was clearly stunned. Li Yian? How is this possible? Lin Feiyun was shocked and couldn't believe his eyes. He remembered that 3 years ago, he had broken Li Yoyun's legs and disfigured his face. But now, the Li Yuyun standing in front of him had recovered his appearance. His broken legs were as good as new. You? Lin Feiyun was so shocked that he couldn't speak. A chill ran down his spine, and he slowly backed away. Brother Feiyun, you're truly a person of great stature with short memories. Could it be that you don't recognize this little brother? Li Yoyun's face was as gloomy as water. He looked coldly at Lin Feiyun, as he recalled all his experiences in the past 3 years. 3 years of struggling at death's door. 3 years of suffering in the world. 3 years of living like a dog. All of this was caused by Lin Feiyun. Today, after 3 years, he finally reached the first level of that mysterious technique. This also allowed him to break out of his cocoon and transform into a butterfly, allowing him to obtain a new life. Men! Lin Feiyun shouted in panic. His head was covered in cold sweat because he could feel that Li Yuyan was not ordinary. At this moment, the murderous intent emitted from his body made him feel apprehensive. Tap, tap, tap. A large number of footsteps could be heard as a large number of guards came from all directions and quickly surrounded Li Yuyan. Kill him for your highness. The arrival of the guards made Lin Feiyun slightly relieved. He gave the order fiercely, but what happened next shocked Lin Feiyun to the core. Scram. Li Yian didn't seem to do anything. He just stretched out his palm, and a red mist filled the sky. All the guards turned into ashes and disappeared. You. Such a scene made Lin Feiyun's scalp tingle. He stumbled back in fear, while Li Yuyan walked towards him step by step. Don't kill me, Lin Feiyun said in fear. He actually knelt down in front of Li Yuyan. Brother Yuyan, I was wrong. I was really wrong. Please be magnanimous and let me go. Lin Feiyun kept kowtowing to Li Yuyan. He begged with tears in his eyes. Where was the arrogance from before? Looking at Lin Feiyun, who was kneeling at his feet, Li Yuyan's face was cold and said, Lin Feiyun, you bastard. You didn't think that you would have a day like this, did you? Brother Yuyan, I was wrong. I was really wrong. Please spare my life. Please spare my life. Lin Feiyun cried with snot and tears. He kept kowtowing to Li Yuyan. You despicable person. You don't have the right to call my name. Li Yuyan's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He slowly raised his hand, as if he would kill Lin Feiyun in the next moment. Brother Yuyan. Suddenly, in this critical moment, a dazed voice rang out from behind Li Yuyan. Li Yuyan was startled and slowly turned around. Li Xianxian. Li Yuyan's expression became complicated when he saw who it was. It was Li Xianxian, who had become close friends with him 3 years ago. However, 3 years later, Li Xianxian had become Lin Feiyun's wife. She had gone from a young girl to a young married woman. Although she was no longer as young and inexperienced as before, she had gained a sense of grace and nobility. Xianxian, save me. Save me. Lin Feiyun was like a stray dog. He wailed and begged Li Xianxian for help. You bastard. Li Xianxian walked over with tears in her eyes. She gave Lin Feiyun a hard slap, causing Lin Feiyun to stagger. Brother Yuyin, I've let you down. Li Xianxian knelt in front of Li Yuyin with a bang. She kept kowtowing to Li Yuyin. Her face was filled with guilt. Xianxian, get up. I don't blame you. Li Yuyin sighed and reached out to help Li Xianxian up. After all, the two of them had known each other for a while. He also knew that Li Xianxian was one of the victims. Xianxian, kill him. Suddenly Lin Feiyun's wailing disappeared. His expression was fierce and sinister as he let out a vicious roar. Puffed. A cold light flashed past. Li Yuyin let out a muffled groan. He stared blankly at Li Xianxian in front of him, as if he didn't know her. At this moment, Li Xianxian had stabbed a knife into his chest. Why? Why is this happening? Li Yuyin asked in a daze. Traces of blood flowed out from his chest. I'm sorry. Li Xianxian gripped the knife that was stabbed into Li Yuyin's chest tightly. She looked at Li Yuyin with teary eyes and kept crying out sorrowful words. Yuyin, I've let you down. Lin Feiyun may have done a lot of wrong, but he's my husband and the father of my child. I can't watch him die in your hands. Li Xianxian cried out. However, she gripped the knife in her hand tightly and kept stabbing Li Yuyin's chest. Her eyes revealed a hint of madness. Haha. Suddenly, Lin Feiyun stood up from the ground. He laughed arrogantly again and said, Lin Feiyun, you trash. You'll always be trash. If you want to kill me, then come and kill me. Li Xianxian, from now on, our relationship is over. Suddenly Li Yuyin roared with hatred. He sent Li Xianxian flying with a palm strike. He pulled out the knife that was stabbed into his chest and crushed it into a pile of iron powder. The wound on his chest healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. How is this possible? Such a scene made Lin Feiyun dumbfounded on the spot. Large amounts of cold sweat drenched his entire body. An indescribable sense of terror invaded his soul. Brother Yi and I. Li Xianxian smiled miserably. She did not expect that she would not be able to kill Li Yuyin, even though she had hardened her heart. Lin Feiyun, go to hell. Li Yuyin could no longer control his monstrous anger. He slapped Lin Feiyun with his palm. The bright red light fell from the sky. No! Lin Feiyun screamed in horror. However, at this moment, a figure suddenly stood in front of him and blocked Li Yuyin's killing blow. Bang! Li Xianxian was sent flying. Large amounts of blood spurted from her mouth. Her entire chest collapsed at this moment. Xianxian? Lin Feiyun looked at this scene in a daze. He knelt on the ground weakly. Why? Li Yuyin said in a daze. He looked at Li Xianxian's broken body and could not understand why she would risk her life to protect Lin Feiyun. He is full of evil. He has done all kinds of bad things. But in the past 3 years, he has taken good care of me and my child. And he has not done anything wrong to us. After all, he is my husband. Xianxian. I don't want to see him die. Li Xianxian kept coughing up blood. A helpless smile appeared on her face. Finally, she died in front of Li Yuyin. Chapter 1003. Crack. Li Yuyin clenched his fists tightly. His mortal aura soared into the sky, and an indescribable hatred grew within him. He strode towards Lin Feiyun, his eyes as red as blood. I'll kill you! Li Yuyin roared with hatred. Come kill me! Li Yuyin, you piece of trash, come and kill me! Lin Feiyun slowly stood up from the ground. He no longer looked like a lowly dog. Instead, he stared at Li Yuyin with a fierce and cold expression. So what if you've become an immortal? So what if you've become a cultivator? You're destined to be a piece of trash. In front of me, Lin Feiyun, you'll always be a loser. Even today Li Xianxian betrayed you. In my eyes, you're still a complete piece of trash. I, Lin Feiyun, did not lose to you. I never lost to you. Even if I die in your hands today, you're still a loser to me, Lin Feiyun. I didn't lose to you. I lost to the heavens. It was the heavens that allowed you to escape from a hopeless situation. That's why I, Lin Feiyun, died in your hands. I, Lin Feiyun, am not willing to accept this. Lin Feiyun roared again and again. He pointed at the heavens and roared with hatred, as if he was denouncing the heavens for being unfair. Hearing Lin Feiyun's roars, Li Yuyin was speechless. A sad smile appeared on his face, and the killing intent on his body gradually dissipated. You're right. I'm indeed a loser. In your eyes, I'll always be a piece of trash. I'm a complete loser. I've lost. I've lost completely. Suddenly, Li Yuyan stared at Lin Feiyun. His eyes flashed fiercely. I won't kill you. I'll let you taste all the pain I've suffered. I'll return it to you tenfold, 100-fold. I'll let you taste all the pain in the world, and live in pain for eternity. Buzz! Li Yuyan condensed a 3-foot blade light, and slammed it down on Lin Feiyun's body. Lin Feiyun's face was ruined. The tendons in his arms and legs were all cut by Li Yuyan. A large amount of blood soaked Lin Feiyun's body. However, Lin Feiyun stubbornly refused to let himself cry out in pain. His gaze was like that of a venomous snake as he stared at Li Yuyan. In the end, he collapsed to the ground like a puddle of mud, constantly twitching and spasming on the ground. Lin Feiyun, I'll exterminate your entire family. I'll leave no one alive in your Lin clan. Whether it's your father, the prime minister, or your newborn child, I'll leave you with nothing. I'll make you suffer for the rest of your life. On this day, Li Yuyan went completely berserk. He left no one alive in Ming Wangfu. Even Li Xianxian and Lin Feiyun's child died at his hands. The Lin clan was also exterminated in a single night. From then on, there was no longer a member of the Lin clan in Aolai. There was only a broken beggar howling in pain in the night like a dead dog. In the void, Yi Xian and Fatso Huang stood side by side. The two of them witnessed with their own eyes Li Yuyan's crazy act of revenge. They also saw Lin Feiyun roar in hatred in the night, and all of Ming Wangfu turned into a sea of fire. Sir, Li Yuyan should have passed the first tribulation of the mortal world. We succeeded. Fatso Huang sighed. No, you and I were both wrong. Suddenly, Yi Xian slowly shook his head. He looked down at Li Yuyan under the night sky, and a self-deprecating smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. As the saying goes, karma breeds karma. This seems to be the enmity between Li Yuyan and Lin Feiyun, but the instigator is me. Yi Xian sighed. When Li Yuyan exterminated Ming Wangfu and personally severed Lin Feiyun's limbs, the karma between the two should have been settled. According to Yi Xian's guess, Li Yuyan's body should have produced a trace of the power of karma. However, what Yi Xian was worried about still happened. Li Yuyan's body did not produce a trace of the power of karma, because all of this was caused by Yi Xian. How could Li Yuyan's body produce a trace of the power of karma? To put it bluntly, Lin Feiyun was just a scapegoat, and the real karma was between Yi Xian and Li Yuyan. It seems that it's time for me to meet him, Yi Xian said calmly, but Fatso Huang's expression changed. Under the sky, in the void, Li Yuyan stared blankly at Ming Wangfu, who was engulfed in a sea of fire. He did not know if what he did was right or wrong, and he was at a loss for what to do. After getting his revenge, he did not know what to do next. Li Yuyan. Suddenly, a calm voice rang out in Li Yuyan's ears. This also woke Li Yuyan up instantly, and he looked towards the source of the voice. Bro, elder brother? When Li Yuyan saw Yi Xian suddenly appear behind him, his expression changed. He could not believe his eyes. That's right, but you've only cultivated the first level of the boundless secular technique, and you already have the cultivation of a primordial unity golden immortal. This is unprecedented in the three realms. Yi Xian nodded calmly. Elder brother, you're an immortal? After 3 years of suffering in the mortal world, Li Yuyan had completely grown up. He was no longer the hot-blooded scholar of the past, and his mind had matured to the extreme. During these 3 years of cultivating the boundless secular technique, Li Yuyan had also guessed the identity of Yi Xian and Fatso Huang, because this technique was given to him by Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian's appearance in front of him finally confirmed Li Yuyan's guess. Yi Xian was indeed not an ordinary person, and should be a real immortal. If Yi Xian was an immortal, then was his wife also an immortal? At this moment, Li Yuyan did not dare to continue thinking about it. He felt as if he had fallen into a chess game, and he was like a chess piece, quietly being manipulated by others. Big brother Yi, you know everything? Li Yuyan asked in a daze. At this moment, with his hands behind his back, Yi Xian looked up at the sky and said, That's right, I've seen everything you've been through. Perhaps you've already guessed that Yaoyue and I are indeed not ordinary people. What's going on? Li Yoyun's mind was trembling, because he felt that the truth was about to surface. A great sense of panic was growing in his heart. Yaoyue was originally the first princess of the celestial court, and Yi Xian slowly began to narrate, hiding nothing from Li Yuyan. As Yi Xian slowly narrated, Li Yoyun's face was lifeless and speechless. He finally understood everything at this moment. It turned out that he had been kept in the dark all this time. Then what about my experience in these 3 years? Li Yuyan stared fixedly at Yi Xian, his voice trembling to the extreme. Whether it's Li Xianxian or Lin Feiyan, they're just chess pieces in my hands. The instigator of all this is me, and the pain you've experienced is also caused by me. At this point, Yi Xian finally withdrew his gaze from the sky and looked indifferently at Li Yuyan. And you are actually also my chess piece. Boom! Like a thunderclap from the 9th heaven, like a vast ocean wave crashing down, Li Yuyan felt as if his soul was about to explode. He was completely shocked by Yi Xian's words on the spot. Why did you do this? After a full 10 breaths, Li Yuyan roared angrily, and a tyrannical aura suddenly erupted. He looked at Yi Xian with an extremely complicated expression. Why did I do this? Yi Xian laughed self-deprecatingly, and then said in a low voice, the reason is very simple. It's because I need you to cultivate a trace of the power of karma. And this power will be of great use to me. Do you understand? I'll kill you. Li Yuyan roared angrily, and the aura of the mortal world soared into the sky. Humiliation, anger, and many other negative emotions surged. Chapter 1004. Yi Xian seemed to have expected Li Yoyun's angry roar. After all, if he were in Li Yoyun's shoes, he would have already made his move. Kill me? Yi Xian smiled faintly and said, you sure talk big. But look at the 3 realms. Who can kill me? Even the high and mighty heavenly path saints have to retreat when they see me, let alone a mere Li Yuyan. Go to hell. Li Yoyun's anger had reached its peak. The aura of the mortal world filled the air. He took a step forward and charged at Yi Xian. His cultivation was raised to its peak. Bang! Yi Xian smiled contemptuously. When his sleeves fluttered, the wind and clouds surged. Li Yuyan was sent flying with a bang. His entire body fell to the ground like a kite with a broken string. Bang! Li Yuyan crashed heavily to the ground. He spat out a mouthful of blood. Facing an undefeatable enemy like Yi Xian, he couldn't even touch the corner of Yi Xian's clothes. Bang bang bang. Yi Xian strolled through the air until he arrived in front of Li Yuyan. He looked down at him with a condescending gaze. If you have the ability, then kill me. Li Yuyan used his arms to support himself on the ground. However, before he could stabilize himself, Yi Xian's sleeves fluttered again. Immediately, Li Yuyan was flipped to the ground. Your life is not worth mentioning to me. You can only be a chess piece in my hands. This is your fate, Yi Xian said calmly. I don't believe in fate. Li Yuyan roared angrily. He used his arms to support himself on the ground and tried to stand up again. However, what welcomed him was Yi Xian stepping on his head. Half of his head was pressed into the ground. You don't have the right to not believe in fate. Your fate is in my control. If I want you to live, you live. If I want you to die, you die. This is your fate. Yi Xian stepped on Li Yoyun's head and continued to crush it. Li Yuyan couldn't stand up at all. A heart-wrenching roar came from Li Yoyun's mouth. I'll kill you. I'll kill you. The aura of the mortal world filled Li Yoyun's body. He was being trampled under Yi Xian's feet. He suffered great humiliation. The hatred in his heart was about to burst his chest. Kill me. Come, stand up and kill me. Yi Xian whispered coldly and mercilessly. He slowly raised his foot and stepped on Li Yoyun's cheek. No matter how Li Yuyan roared and urged the power of the mortal world in his body, he couldn't stand up. You trash. Stand up and kill me. Thump thump thump. Yi Xian mercilessly stepped on Li Yuyan. Li Yoyun's head caved in, and a large amount of blood flowed out. However, Yi Xian always had a sense of propriety. He didn't really kill Li Yuyan. Since this was the karma between him and Li Yuyan, He naturally wanted to make Li Yuyan hate him. He wanted to eat his flesh and drink his blood, so that Li Yuyan could produce a trace of the power of karma. Sure enough, under Yi Xian's wanton humiliation and trampling, the aura of the mortal world on Li Yuyan's body became stronger and stronger. The power of karma grew in his body. An extremely mysterious fluctuation burst out of Li Yuyan's body, shaking off Yi Xian's foot that was stepping on his head. Did it work? Yi Xian's eyes lit up. He saw Li Yuyan slowly stand up, but his eyes were already blood red. He looked at Yi Xian with an indescribable murderous intent. 3,000 tribulations of the mortal world. Li Yuyan roared. His hair suddenly turned pink, and then continued to flutter and expand in the wind. Even the void of this part of the world was faintly distorted. Kill. The sky darkened as the mortal world surged. Li Yuyan's hair fluttered like a vast river rushing toward Yi Xian. The power of the mortal world that could shatter the void was released to the extreme. The boundless mortal world technique is indeed worthy of its reputation. Yi Xian nodded slightly. Li Yuyan's cultivation was only at the primordial unity golden immortal realm. At this moment, a trace of the power of karma was produced, which made his mind ripple. Bang! Yi Xian did not move. He was still gently stroking his sleeve. The power that could destroy mountains and rivers sent Li Yuyan flying. Strong, too strong, really too strong. Li Yuyan was only a primordial unity golden immortal. Even if he was a heavenly sage, he would not be a match for Yi Xian. Unless he passed the 5 disasters of the mortal world, he might be able to fight against Yi Xian. Unfortunately, the boundless mortal world technique that Li Yuyan cultivated was incomplete. Even if he obtained the complete technique, he would not be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with Yi Xian without 200,000 years. Yi Xian! Li Yuyan was bleeding from his 7 orifices. He had completely lost the strength to fight. He stared fiercely at Yi Xian, but a great sense of powerlessness rose in his heart. Yi Xian was simply too powerful. He was as powerful as a mountain that could support the heavens, and he was just a lowly stone. Even if he used all of his strength, he wouldn't be able to shake Yi Xian in the slightest. A chess piece should have the awareness of a chess piece. This is your life. You have no choice but to believe it. Yi Xian said indifferently. His 5 fingers suddenly stretched out toward Li Yuyan. A great suction force pulled Li Yuyan to Yi Xian's side. His 5 fingers suddenly pressed down on Li Yuyan's head. Buzz! Ah! Yi Xian's 5 fingers glowed. It was an extremely dark light. Li Yuyan was screaming in pain. A faintly discernible wisp of red light quietly overflowed from his head. It was then absorbed by Yi Xian. I got it! Yi Xian said excitedly. He had finally obtained this wisp of karma power. Bang! Yi Xian casually threw Li Yuyan to the ground. Li Yuyan was bathed in blood and gasping for breath. His entire body exuded an extremely weak aura. This wisp of karma power was extremely important to Li Yuyan. Now that it had been seized by Yi Xian, he was severely injured. Fortunately, he had already cultivated the first level of the boundless secular technique, and did not lose his life because of this wisp of karma power. Yayue is waiting for you at home. You can go now, Yi Xian said indifferently. Yi Xian, as long as I, Li Yuyan, am alive, you will die in my hands sooner or later. Li Yuyan roared angrily. He firmly imprinted Yi Xian's appearance in his mind. Then he soared into the sky and shot into the distance. Sir! Fatso Huang's expression changed slightly. He raised his hand to stop Li Yuyan. His entire body was filled with an extremely terrifying killing intent. Let him go. Suddenly, without waiting for Fatso Huang to make a move, Yi Xian stopped Fatso Huang. This made Fatso Huang extremely surprised. He did not know why Yi Xian wanted to keep Li Yuyan alive. Sir, you can't let him go. This kid has cultivated the boundless secular technique. In the future, won't he become a great enemy of yours? Fatso Huang said with a trembling voice. Great enemy? Yi Xian smiled. However, his smile was extremely contemptuous. He said, a mere Li Yuyan is only my chess piece. He will never be worthy of being my enemy. As I said before, this is his fate. No one can change it. Chapter 1005. And haven't you heard of this saying? using one spear to attack another's shield? Hearing Yi Xian's words, Fatso Huang was stunned. Mister, you mean? That Luoho cultivates the boundless secular world technique. And this Li Yuyan also cultivates the same technique. This kid is of great use to me. Wouldn't it be a pity if I killed him? Yi Xian smiled mysteriously. But mister, this Li Yuyan hates you very much. I'm afraid that if he... Fatso Huang said worriedly. Fatso Huang could not be blamed for being worried. This Li Yuyan had only cultivated for 3 years, but he had already stepped into the ranks of primordial unity golden immortals. This kind of cultivation speed was simply unimaginable. Yi Xian had suffered many hardships in order to become an immortal. He had even spent 10 years. However, this Li Yuyan was actually better than Yi Xian. There's no if. You just have to remember that he's just a pawn of mine, Yi Xian said softly. In fact, Yi Xian did not tell Fatso Huang one thing, because it was related to the so-called power of karma. That's right. Li Yuyan had suffered so many humiliations and tribulations because of Yi Xian. The two of them had even formed a bond of karma. However, there was one thing that should not be forgotten. Li Yuyan's current cultivation was all because of Yi Xian. From immortal to a primordial unity golden immortal in 3 years of cultivation. This was a great opportunity. No matter how far Li Yuyan had cultivated, under the power of karma, Li Yuyan could only be suppressed by Yi Xian. This was the terrifying power of karma. Without Yi Xian, there would be no Li Yuyan, because Li Yuyan owed Yi Xian. This was the power of karma. The principle was as simple as that. If Li Yuyan wanted to break free from Yi Xian's control, there were only 2 ways. Either he crippled his cultivation and became immortal and died of old age in the mortal world, or he passed through the 9 tribulations of the mortal world and became the saint of saints. Otherwise, he would be suppressed by Yi Xian for the rest of his life. With Yi Xian's current cultivation, even heavenly saints had to be somewhat afraid of him. He had already understood the power of karma. Similarly, Yi Xian also understood that he owed Yuan Ling. Without Yuan Ling's teachings when he was young, Yi Xian would not be where he was today. However, Yi Xian was different from Li Yuyan in that he had the power of nirvanic extermination to resist Yuan Ling, and the power of nirvanic extermination could resist the power of karma. Otherwise, he would have been possessed by Yuan Ling back then. Yi Xian was not arrogant. He could not repeat Yuan Ling's mistakes, because Yuan Ling was his predecessor. He let Li Yuyan go, so he naturally had the means to kill him at any time. All of this was under Yi Xian's control. To be honest, there were times when Yi Xian was very grateful to Yuan Ling, because Yuan Ling had taught him many things. Even today, Li Yuyan's matter had given him the means to truly control Li Yuyan. However, Yi Xian was also wary of Yuan Ling. Although he had the nirvanic battle armor to resist Yuan Ling, it was only an external force. Only by becoming truly powerful, and not being restricted by the power of karma could Yi Xian feel at ease. The reason Yi Xian was able to reach this point wasn't just because of his cultivation. 200,000 years of hard work. He had experienced countless death tribulations. How could a mere Li Yuyan compare to him? Yi Xian had an invincible heart. He wasn't afraid of any tribulations. This was the reason why he could reach where he was today. Fatso Huang, I need to enter seclusion for a period of time. During this time, I have a mission for you, Yi Xian said. Sir, please speak, Fatso Huang hurriedly agreed. Lin Feiyun. Yi Xian looked at Lin Feiyun, who was covered in blood as he crawled on the streets of the capital. A look of contemplation flashed in his eyes. I want you to protect his life. I will naturally come to you after I come out of seclusion, Yi Xian said solemnly. Yes, sir. Although Fatso Huang didn't understand what Yi Xian wanted to do, he still bowed and agreed. Cosmic shift tore through the void. Yi Xian took a step and vanished. Clearly, he had obtained a trace of the power of karma, and could finally fuse space-time divine powers into one. This was what he needed to do now. Elsewhere, Lotus Village. It had been 3 years since Li Yuyan entered the imperial examination. Yi Yaoyue waited at home with her children, but after 3 years, Li Yuyan had yet to return. Yi Yaoyue wanted to find Li Yuyan, but when she thought of Yi Xian and Li Yuyan traveling together, she ultimately didn't make a move. In Yi Yaoyue's heart, she always held great respect for Yi Xian. She knew that she was rebelling against her brother in the house, so all she could do was pray that Li Yuyan would return safely. Yi Yaoyue. Suddenly, a towering roar sounded. It also made Yi Yaoyue's expression change as she walked out of the straw hut. She saw a figure covered in blood standing outside the straw hut. My husband? When Yi Yaoyue saw Li Yuyan covered in blood, she was stunned on the spot. Her mouth trembled as she spoke. The eldest princess of the celestial court actually married a mortal like me. She even gave birth to a pair of children for me. I am truly honored. Li Yuyan laughed maniacally as tears rolled down from his eyes. My husband? I didn't want to lie to you. Yi Yaoyue bit her lips as her body and mind trembled slightly. She didn't know what had happened, but she could feel that Li Yuyan must have experienced something terrible in the past 3 years. Rip! Li Yuyan suddenly tore off his robe and cut it in half. He said, you and I, husband and wife, have such a robe. From now on, our relationship is severed. Father! A pair of children ran out of the straw hut. When they saw Li Yuyan's ferocious appearance, they cried out in fear. Looking at his children, Li Yuyan clenched his fists. He really wanted to hold them in his arms, but he couldn't. He really couldn't. Because he wanted revenge. He wanted revenge on Yi Xian. Yi Yaoyue, tell that Yi Xian that when I, Li Yuyan, achieve great success in my cultivation, I will definitely take his dog life. Li Yuyan coldly turned around and directly transformed into a long streak of light as she shot off. Although he couldn't bear to part with his children, the hatred in his heart towards Yi Xian had already caused him to fall into extreme paranoia. My husband. Seeing Li Yuyan fly into the sky, Yi Yaoyue slumped to the ground powerlessly. The thing she was worried about had finally happened. Something had happened to her husband, and the instigator of all of this was her brother, Yi Xian. No one else could have done it. Heaven and earth reversed, time and space returned to one. Yi Xian sat cross-legged in the void as his hands formed mysterious seals. A trace of karma power floated above his head as time and space divine abilities emanated. Fuse! Kaboom! The time and space divine abilities exploded, instantly drowning Yi Xian. The trace of karma power above his head glowed red and fused with his head. Chapter 1006. In the 3 realms, the way of heaven was supreme. This was an unchanging iron law since Pangu created the world. However, there was nothing absolute in the world. There were many terrifying powers above the way of heaven. These powers completely surpassed the way of heaven and were the manifestation of the strongest powers. The power of chaos, the power of cause and effect, the power of nirvana, the power of fate, the power of time, the power of space. These strongest powers all surpassed the way of heaven and were the most powerful powers in the myriad worlds. Among them, the power of time and the power of space were ranked last. They were completely incomparable to these strongest powers. However, according to legend, if someone could combine time and space and transform it into the power of time, then he could control the river of time and travel between the past and the future. He had unimaginable power. Unfortunately, legends were just legends. No one had ever been able to control the power of time and space. Even in the chaotic world, it was impossible for anyone to control this power. The power of time and space was too mysterious. It was already comparable to the power of chaos. It was all-encompassing and involved the secrets of the myriad worlds. Rumble. Yi Xian's body was distorted to the extreme, as if it was formed by a pile of bubbles. Wisps of silver-white light flickered on his body, and the power of cause and effect was reflected in the middle of his eyebrows. Ah! A heart-wrenching scream sounded out from Yi Xian's mouth. His body suddenly turned into specks of silver light. However, under the mediation of a trace of the power of karma, his body quickly combined together and once again materialized. It was like a knife cutting flesh and bone, and also like thousands of ants biting into the body. This silver-white light was the product of the fusion of time and space magic. It actually shattered Yi Xian's body. Fortunately, this power of cause and effect allowed Yi Xian's body to reassemble. Moreover, he had already cultivated the indestructible demon body, so he would not die under this power. The combination of time and space was too terrifying. This power had surpassed the way of heaven. Although the fusion was not successful, the prototype of time and space was extremely terrifying. Yi Xian was not so ambitious. He did not want to fuse the power of time and effect. He only wanted to cultivate a time and space seed. This was what he wanted. This was because Yi Xian knew his limits. With his cultivation of the 4 tribulations of the heavenly Tao, even if he could fuse the power of space-time, he would probably be crushed to death by the power of space-time in an instant. One had to take one step at a time, and one had to eat one bite at a time. No one could become fatso in one bite. This was also the most obvious truth. Only by cultivating a space-time seed could it take root and sprout. As Yi Xian's cultivation increased, this seed would eventually grow into a 3 heavens tree. What a terrifying power! Yi Xian crazily circulated the undying immortal scripture. Strands of black holy energy spread out, continuously strengthening his body. There was even a trace of the power of karma, releasing a mysterious aura, constantly balancing the embryonic form of the sky. Wang! Suddenly, Yi Xian felt his consciousness tremble. His sacred heart began to crumble, and the karma power between his eyebrows showed signs of dissipating. The fledgling space-time he had just fused with shone brightly, and it actually shattered the space he was in, bringing him into a spatial crack. Woo woo woo. Astral winds surged and the space collapsed. This was a space of nothingness. There was no up or down, no north, south, east, or west. There were only faintly discernible black cracks. Darkness and destruction were the only colors here. Wang! A black crack opened, and Yi Xian suddenly entered this mysterious place. Spatial cracks flashed past his body, instantly shattering his body into pieces. Terrifying, too terrifying. This place was simply terrifying to the extreme. This place was filled with the power of space, and time did not flow here. It was impossible to know where this place was. However, there was one point. Even if a heavenly Tao saint entered this place, he would definitely die. This was because the terrifying power of time and space were rampant, leaving no trace of life behind. Condense! An angry roar came, and Yi Xian's shattered body recovered again. However, before he could prepare, another spatial crack attacked, and his body was once again shattered into pieces. Nirvana battle armor. Wang! A dot of black light was produced, and accompanied by Yi Xian's roar, his body recovered again. He was also wearing the Nirvana battle armor, but his face was extremely pale. It was obvious that he had been severely injured. Even if he had the cultivation of the 4 tribulations of the heavenly Tao, it was useless. Yi Xian no longer had the mood to guess where this place was, because he could already feel death approaching. He was very sure that if he did not leave this place quickly, he would definitely die in this place. Boom! Suddenly, a spatial crack flashed past Yi Xian's body. Yi Xian's entire body was blasted flying. Fortunately, he had the Nirvana battle armor on him, allowing him to see if he could withstand the spatial crack. At the same time, the Black Saint energy in Yi Xian's body was boiling like magma. Waves of violent aura surged into his mind, and the undying immortal scripture was circulating wildly without his control. 5 tribulations of the heavenly Tao. Yi Xian had just stabilized his body when his expression changed. This was because he felt that his cultivation at the peak of the 4 tribulations of the heavenly Tao was beginning to loosen, and there were even signs of him advancing to the 5 tribulations of the heavenly Tao. The 9 tribulations of the heavenly Tao meant certain death. This was not just a saying. It was the most terrifying thing about proving one's Tao with strength. Yi Xian never expected that the 5 tribulations of the heavenly Tao would erupt when he was fusing the space-time divine ability. This made his heart sink to the extreme. So, this is the 5 tribulations of the heavenly Tao. Yi Xian looked around this mysterious place with deep fear in his eyes. Yi Xian's expression changed drastically, because his saint heart began to shatter again. The karma power floating between his eyebrows also showed signs of dissipating. The most terrifying thing was that the space-time prototype he had just fused was actually backfiring on him. Yi Xian's body swelled like a rubber ball, as the cultivation in his body went berserk. The space-time prototype was in a frenzy in his body, as large amounts of blood kept flowing out of his mouth. If this continued, he would definitely explode and die. However, this was not the end. The spatial rifts in the outside world swept past his body once again, sending him flying out. The Nirvana battlesuit's light gradually dimmed, as though it would break away from Yi Xian's body at any moment. Death tribulations, life and death tribulations. Internal and external troubles attacked together. The 5 tribulations of the heavenly Tao were too terrifying. Yi Xian could not find a way to resolve it. The space-time prototype was backfiring on him, and the cultivation in his body was going berserk. There were also the spatial rifts in the outside world attacking him. This was simply a situation of certain death. The spatial rifts in the outside world were blocked by the Nirvana battle suit, so there was no danger for the time being. However, the Nirvana battle suit required Yi Xian to use his cultivation to power it. Furthermore, this treasure was as heavy as the heavens. He could only wear it for 2 hours at most. After 2 hours, he would be attacked by the spatial rifts again. Chapter 1007. And this was secondary. At this moment, the cultivation in his body was going berserk, and the fledgling space-time was suffering a backlash. This was his greatest calamity. If he did not handle it well, his soul would really dissipate and he would die. Suppress for me. Yi Xian formed a seal with both hands as a black stone tablet condensed, and pressed down on his head. This was a taboo technique in the Immortal scripture called the world-suppressing steel. Yi Xian could only use this technique to temporarily suppress himself. Puffed. He spat out a mouthful of blood essence. Although the world-suppressing steel was powerful, the fledgling space-time was even more terrifying. It instantly turned Yi Xian's mystic technique into nothingness. This won't do. If this continues, I'll definitely die. Yi Xian muttered solemnly. However, he did not show any signs of panic, because he had already experienced too many life and death tribulations. Although it was very dangerous at this moment, he still calmed himself down. There's a way. There must be a way. Yi Xian constantly told himself to calm down. Many mystic techniques surfaced in his mind, but in the end, they were all rejected by him. The 5 heavenly Tao tribulations? The power of space-time. The 5 heavenly Tao tribulations? The power of space-time? Yi Xian constantly muttered to himself. He constantly looked around this mysterious space, and a flash of inspiration suddenly flashed across his eyes. Yes, it must be like this. Yi Xian roared excitedly in his heart, as if he had found a way to transcend the 5 heavenly Tao tribulations. However, there was also an extremely crazy look in his eyes, as if he had made a decision. Withdraw. Yi Xian's expression was ferocious. The Nirvana battle armor instantly disappeared, and his entire body was exposed to the outside world. It was also at this moment that a spatial rift tore him to pieces. The Sacred Heart is immortal and eternal. Yi Xian abandoned his body and condensed all his cultivation into the Sacred Heart. Be it the power of karma or the fledgling space-time, they were all condensed in his Sacred Heart at this moment. The so-called 5 heavenly Tao tribulations were formed by fusing the space-time seed. In that case, Yi Xian had to completely nurture the space-time seed. As long as he succeeded, the 5 heavenly Tao tribulations could be transcended. Buzz. The spatial cracks in the outside world were too terrifying. They instantly swept past Yi Xian's Sacred Heart, but something strange happened at the same time. The spatial cracks were actually absorbed by the embryonic form of time and space, and didn't cause the slightest bit of harm to Yi Xian's Sacred Heart. Fuse! Yi Xian's Sacred Heart thumped as strands of black holy energy wrapped around the embryonic form of time and space. The strand of karma that was about to collapse completely wrapped around the embryonic form of time and space, and a mysterious and terrifying fluctuation exploded out from Yi Xian's Sacred Heart. Calm. Yi Xian's Sacred Heart thumped, and the embryonic form of time and space began to undergo a mysterious change. Under the entanglement of the karma energy, it continued to shrink, and an obscure fluctuation rippled out. Time and space fuse. Nurture. Suddenly, as if the first ray of light was born in the chaos, A roar that seemed to split heaven and earth was heard. Yi Xian's sacred heart shook violently. The space-time seed finally turned into a seed and merged into Yi Xian's sacred heart. Indestructible demonic body. Buzz. Yi Xian's sacred heart trembled in fear. Lines of blood-red lines intertwined with the sacred heart as the center. First, the bones were condensed. Then a large amount of flesh and blood grew on the bones. His limbs were growing, his facial features were forming, and his jet-black hair was rapidly growing. After a few dozen breaths of time, Yi Xian once again appeared. Buzz. When Yi Xian's body was reassembled, the mysterious place shook again. Spatial rifts swept across Yi Xian's body, but they could not cause any harm to him. Suddenly, Yi Xian opened his eyes. His two black pupils rotated slightly. The power of time and space seemed to be born in his eyes. His entire body emitted a silver light. A vast and ancient aura bloomed from his body. Did I succeed? Yi Xian muttered in a daze. He slowly extended his hands, and a faint silver light flashed across his hands. With a cracking sound, he actually grabbed the space in his hands and exploded it, causing a huge spatial crack to appear. What a terrifying power. It actually shattered the space. Yi Xian whispered in a daze. His eyes were filled with great shock. He could not recover from his shock. Although Yi Xian knew that he was very strong, he was not strong enough to crush the space with a casual pinch. Moreover, he did not use the cultivation of the 5 tribulations of the heavenly Tao. It was just a trace of power produced after the space-time seed merged with him. Yi Xian kept telling himself to calm down. He began to examine himself. Only then did he realize that there was a seed in his sacred heart swaying slightly. A wisp of silver-white light shone on the seed. This is the power of time and space. Yi Xian whispered in shock. Although this wisp of power of time and space was extremely weak and almost undetectable, it was indeed something that existed. Moreover, the aura it emitted made Yi Xian's soul tremble. This also proved how terrifying the supreme power was being nurtured in it. Good. Yi Xian roared in excitement. He said the word good 3 times in a row. This made him even more excited than when he had crossed the 5 tribulations of the heavenly Tao. The space-time seed was being nurtured. As long as he carefully nurtured and watered it, it would definitely grow into a towering tree. In the future, he would also be able to summon the river of time and fulfill his lifelong dream. However, the space-time seed was still very weak and needed to be nurtured carefully. As his cultivation rose, this space-time seed would also take root and germinate. Yi Xian gradually calmed down. He began to examine himself again. After crossing the 5 tribulations of the heavenly Tao, his cultivation had undergone earth-shattering changes. His body was as heavy as the heavens, but also as light as a feather. However, he was constantly being repelled by an inexplicable force. This inexplicable force should be the power of the heavenly Tao. The cultivation in his body rumbled endlessly like the stars in the vast sea. It was as if a great arc could penetrate both the heaven and earth realms. Strong, very strong. It was so strong that Yi Xian wanted to roar in excitement. However, after Yi Xian gradually calmed down, the most direct feeling he had was a repressed emotion. Yes, it was repressed. This repressed feeling came from the outside world. It was as if there was a thick chain binding Yi Xian's body. It made him feel extremely repressed and uncomfortable. He wanted to use all his strength to break the chains on his body and obtain the freedom he wanted. The heavenly Tao's suppression? A light flashed in Yi Xian's eyes. He instantly understood what he was feeling. Now that he had crossed the 5 tribulations of the heavenly Tao, he was already at the peak of the 3 realms. He already had the faint urge to break free from the 3 realms. That was why he felt the repressive force of the heavenly Tao. It seems that if I cross the 6 tribulations of the heavenly Tao, I will be comparable to Tao ancestor Hongjun, who has integrated with the Tao. Yi Xian muttered softly. Yi Xian was in deep thought. It was unknown what he was thinking in his heart. After a full 2 hours, he finally woke up from his thoughts. Let's go. Since he had nurtured the space-time seed and crossed the 5 tribulations of the heavenly Tao, there was no need for Yi Xian to stay here. He took a step forward, and his body tore through space to leave. Chapter 1008. The Five Tribulations of the Heavenly Tao, the Tongtian. Who in the three realms could match him? The path of invincibility had already been opened, and the Tongtian had already embarked on the path. The so-called Heavenly Tao saints were nothing in Yi Xian's eyes. Only Tao Tianzuan and Lao Tzu could fight him. Unfortunately, the so-called Tao Tianzuan and Yi Xian did not take them seriously. This was because when he stepped into the five tribulations of the Heavenly Tao, there were only three people in the three realms who could be his match. The first was Tao ancestor Hongjun, who had fused with the heavens. The second was Yuan Ling, who restricted him. The third was the far-sighted Luo Ho. Apart from these three people, Yi Xian could be said to be invincible in the three realms. Even if the Heavenly Tao saints joined forces to fight him, they would still be suppressed in the end. He traversed through space and arrived in an instant. After nurturing the time seed and stepping into the five tribulations of the Heavenly Tao, Yi Xian's speed was simply unimaginable. With just a step, he quietly traversed thousands of miles. Aolai, the capital. Fatso Huang was yawning in a tea house out of boredom. Occasionally, he would look at Lin Feiyun, who was begging on the street, with a deep sense of helplessness in his eyes. It had been 10 years since Yi Xian left. During these 10 years, he had been ordered to take care of Lin Feiyun, allowing him to live in this world while at death's door. As time passed, Fatso Huang could not help but sigh. Lin Feiyun's perseverance was truly astonishing. Even though his limbs had been broken by Li Yuyan, his survival skills far exceeded that of ordinary people. Lin Feiyun had used almost all the means to survive. Even if he was beaten and abused by mortals, he could still smile and greet them. Oh! Suddenly, Fatso Huang's expression changed because a person had strangely appeared in front of Lin Feiyun. This person was Yi Xian, who had disappeared for 10 years. Sir! Fatso Huang instantly disappeared from the tea house and reappeared beside Yi Xian. It's been hard on you all these years, Yi Xian said softly. How is it hard to serve, sir? Sir, your cultivation base? Fatso Huang grinned. Although he could not see Yi Xian's cultivation, he could feel that Yi Xian's aura was very different from before, giving him an unfathomable feeling. The five tribulations of the Heavenly Tao. Yi Xian smiled. This congratulations, mister, haha. Fatso Huang laughed loudly. His entire mouth had already split open. He was extremely excited. This was because Fatso Huang was Yi Xian's closest person. Furthermore, Yi Xian had once told him that as long as he stepped into the five tribulations of the Heavenly Tao, even the so-called heavenly sages would be trampled beneath his feet. How could he not be excited? Sirs, please do a good deed and give me some food. Lin Feiyun's face was covered in sores and he stank. He did not know when the two people beside him had appeared, but seeing that they had extraordinary auras, he naturally opened his mouth to beg. Lin Feiyun, you've fallen from being a wisdom king to a beggar. This is karma that I owe you, Yi Xian said indifferently. Who are you? Lin Feiyun was stunned when he heard Yi Xian call out his name. Then, he looked at Yi Xian in shock. Actually, it's very simple to end the karma that I owe you. After all, you're just a mortal. Killing you will remove this karma. However, I'm very interested in you, so I don't want to kill you, Yi Xian said indifferently. Lin Feiyun, your opportunity has come. Why aren't you kowtowing and thanking us? Fatso Huang scolded. At this moment, Lin Feiyun was completely stunned. He had no idea what the two people in front of him were talking about. However, he was naturally sinister and extremely intelligent. Now that he had fallen to such a state, he was not afraid that the two of them would plot against him. Lin Feiyun kowtows to the two sirs. Lin Feiyun's tendons in his arms and legs were all severed. He could only squirm on the ground. His face, which was full of pustules, was constantly smashing the ground. Large amounts of blood flowed from his forehead. You were born vicious, black-hearted and merciless. 10 years of being lowly like a dog in exchange for your rebirth. This is also the karma between you and me. Yi Xian nodded slowly. He pointed a finger at Lin Feiyun. Lin Feiyun's body bloomed with extreme vitality. The severed tendons in his arms and legs began to regenerate. The sores on his body also quickly healed. He returned to his original appearance. This? Lin Feiyun blankly extended his palm. He was in a daze. He felt as if he had fallen into a beautiful dream. He did not regain his senses for a long time. My arms and legs can move," Lin Feiyun said in a daze. He simply did not want to believe all of this. "Fatso Huang, bring him along. It's time for us to leave," Yi Xian murmured and slowly walked away. Fatso Huang hurriedly pulled Lin Feiyun into a golden cloud and chased after Yi Xian. Mount Buzhou, the 33rd layer of the Celestial Court. Vast and majestic, immortal lights crisscross between heaven and earth. Mount Buzhou emitted auspicious immortal lights. The 33rd layer of the Celestial Court circled around the mountain like a heavenly dragon, instilling awe and veneration in all who saw it. Clang, clang, clang. A total of 81 drums were beating. The 33rd layer of the Celestial Court was in complete chaos. Large amounts of immortal lights shot out from the various immortal islands and rushed towards the Celestial Emperor Palace. The Celestial Emperor Palace. The immortals came to greet the Celestial Court, and the monster kings bowed, because a joyous event happened in the Celestial Court today. A joyous event that greatly excited the Celestial Court. Yi Tiandi had returned. That's right, Yi Tiandi had returned to the Celestial Court. The 81 drums represented the highest etiquette of the Celestial Court, summoning the immortals and monster kings to the Celestial Emperor Palace for a gathering. In front of the Celestial Emperor Palace, Ziwei wore the robe of the Celestial Emperor. Beside her were numerous quasi-saints, and behind her were the immortals and monster kings. There were more than 10,000 of them, and the weakest among them was Daluo Jingxian. Only Yi Xian's return to the Celestial Court could create such a grand scene. This was also proof of Yi Xian's supreme prestige in the Celestial Court. "Why isn't Yi Tiandi here yet?" Dong Huangtai asked. "Don't be anxious. Huang Tianjun just sent word that Yi Tiandi is on his way to the Celestial Court. He should be here soon," Kong Xian said softly. "I don't know where my brother has been all these years. Now that he's back, I can't let him leave again." Ziwei Tiandi was all smiles. There was no trace of the majesty of the Celestial Emperor. Buzz! Suddenly the winds and clouds changed. A spatial rift opened in the firmament, and 3 figures strolled out. Who else could it be but Yi Xian? The 33rd layer of the Celestial Court welcomes Yi Tiandi's return. When Yi Xian appeared, Ziwei Tiandi was overjoyed. He was the first to bow to Yi Xian. Everyone else in the Celestial Court followed suit, and loudly chanted Yi Tiandi's name. Yi Xian was slightly surprised to see such a grand scene from the Celestial Court. He then looked at Fatso Huang, and saw Fatso Huang winking at him. Obviously, it was Fatso Huang who informed Ziwei of his return. In fact, Yi Xian didn't care about these empty titles. He couldn't blame Fatso Huang for such a small matter. He smiled helplessly and strolled toward Ziwei and the others. "Brother Ziwei Tiandi, there's no need to be so polite. Everyone please rise." Yi Xian waved his sleeve, and the winds and clouds 30,000 miles away surged. The people of the Celestial Court who had just knelt down were suddenly lifted up by a gentle force, preventing them from kneeling down. Chapter 1009. A worthy younger brother, your cultivation? Ziwei Tiandi was shocked, and looked at Yi Xian in astonishment. There were dozens of quasi-saints present, including Daluo Jingxian, who was a heavenly Dao saint. However, Yi Xian simply waved his sleeve, and they couldn't kneel down. This power shocked Ziwei to the core. "Your Majesty, Yi Tiandi has just returned. The old minister has ordered people to hold a banquet to welcome Yi Tiandi back. Let's talk at the Jade Pool." Venus Taibai interrupted. Good. A worthy younger brother, let's talk at the Jade Pool. I've missed you so much." Ziwei Tiandi laughed loudly, and pulled Yi Xian towards the Jade Pool. Everyone in the Celestial Court followed behind. Only Lin Feiyun trembled as he watched this scene. If Fatso Huang didn't slap him, Lin Feiyun probably wouldn't have recovered from his shock. This is the legendary Celestial Court. Who are you and him?" Lin Feiyun looked at Fatso Huang in shock and couldn't believe what he was seeing. "Brat, grasp this great opportunity well. If you miss it, you'll regret it for the rest of your life." Fatso Huang snorted. Feiyan will definitely remember Senior Immortal's teachings. Lin Feiyan quickly knelt and kowtowed. Although he didn't understand what was going on, he knew that as long as he could stay by the side of these two immortals, he would definitely be able to get his revenge. Li Yian, you piece of shit. Wait until I cultivate all my techniques. I'll tear you apart alive. Lin Feiyan screamed in his mind. He still hasn't forgotten about his hatred towards Li Yian. Now that such a great opportunity was in front of him, he must grasp it tightly. Let's go. If you can eat an immortal peach at the Jade Pool banquet, you can immediately become an immortal and save several thousand years of hard cultivation. Fatso Huang patted Lin Feiyan's shoulder and rode his golden cloud towards the Jade Pool. The Jade Pool banquet. The immortals and Yao Kings sat cross-legged below. The white jade tables were filled with immortal spirit fruits and immortal fruits, and many immortal peaches were served to the immortals and Yao Kings at the Jade Pool feast. Yi Xian's return was the greatest joy of the celestial court. Only by holding a peach banquet could they express their respect for Yi Xian. Yi Tiandi, let me propose a toast to you. Dong Huangtai and Di Jun stood up together and bowed to Yi Xian. Then they drank the wine in their cups in one gulp. Good. Yi Xian sat side by side with Ziwei. He raised his cup and drank the wine in one gulp. Immediately, the monarchs and immortals at the Jade Pool banquet cheered loudly. Old Minister would like to propose a toast to you as well. Nether River Patriarch and the other quasi-saints also stood up and proposed toasts to Yi Xian. The atmosphere at the Jade Pool banquet became even more lively. Yi Xian didn't refuse anyone. He drank the wine in his cup and was in a good mood. The monarchs of the celestial court raised their cups to Yi Xian. Then, after being comforted by Yi Xian, they began to exchange toasts with their companions. Brother, where's the Empyrean fairy? Yi Xian clinked his cup with Ziwei 3 times. Only then did he realize that everyone from the celestial court was present except for the Empyrean fairy. Yi Xian asked curiously, a worthy younger brother, you came back at the wrong time. Your wife is very ambitious. She said that you've achieved the Tao in a different way. She's still Daoyuo Jingxian. She's now in seclusion to break through to the quasi-saint realm. Ziwei Tiandi laughed. I see. Yi Xian nodded in understanding. A worthy younger brother. I have something to say, but I don't know if it's appropriate. Ziwei Tiandi put down his cup. He hesitated for a moment before speaking. Of course I know what you want to say. I'm here today to resolve this matter. Yi Xian said softly. Obviously, Yi Yaoyue had given birth to a son and a daughter with Immortal. This had already shamed the celestial court. Ziwei was too embarrassed to ask about this matter. However, how could Yi Xian not know what Ziwei was thinking? Although Yi Xian and Ziwei's conversation was not loud, the people present were not weak. They all heard Yi Xian's words. This caused the Jade Lake banquet to gradually quiet down. Everyone looked at Yi Xian. Yi Yaoyue had given birth to a son and a daughter with Immortal Li Yuyan. In my opinion, this is just a small matter. However, the law of heaven is the law of heaven. It can't be changed just because she's my sworn sister. From now on, Yi Yaoyue will be expelled from the celestial court. She'll never be able to enter the celestial court again. Yi Xian said softly. This punishment was neither light nor heavy. In fact, it was the best way to resolve the matter. However, it stumped Ziwei. Yi Yaoyue was Yi Xian's sworn sister. If he were to expel her from the celestial court, wouldn't that be embarrassing for Yi Xian? Now that Yi Xian had personally expelled Yi Yaoyue from the celestial court, the celestial court's reputation could be considered saved. This also made Ziwei feel relieved. Actually, I know that everyone is giving face to me. That's why you didn't make a big fuss over Yaoyue. Even if Yaoyue was killed by the celestial court, it's still within reason. However, in the past, I once promised someone that I would protect her for life. This is also a bit of selfishness on my part. I'm only expelling her from the celestial court as a punishment. I hope you can understand. Yi Xian said calmly. We dare not have any complaints. Yi Tiandi is too serious. The Immortal and Demon Kings hurriedly stood up and apologized. Their faces were filled with fear. If Yi Yaoyue's incident had happened to Ziwei, although the celestial court wouldn't have said anything, They would have been dissatisfied with Ziwei and complained that she had dealt with it unfairly. However, this incident had happened to Yi Xian, and Yi Xian's influence in the celestial court was too heavy. No one dared to have any complaints or dissatisfaction. One had to know that the entire celestial court had been created by Yi Xian. Without Yi Xian, there wouldn't be a celestial court. No matter what decision Yi Xian made, everyone in the celestial court felt that it was only right. Yi Yaoyue's incident could be considered to have come to an end. The immortals of the celestial court once again became friendly. However, Venus Taibai stood up at this moment and bowed to Yi Xian. Yi Tiandi above, the old minister has a matter to report to you. Venus, feel free to speak your mind, Yi Xian said. As the saying goes, there can't be two people in the sky, and there can't be two people. You are known as Yi Tiandi, and Her Majesty Ziwei is also known as the Celestial Emperor. The old minister feels that this is somewhat inappropriate, Venus Taibai said. Bang! Suddenly, just as Venus Taibai finished speaking, everyone in the celestial court suddenly stood up. The white jade table in front of them suddenly shattered. They looked at Venus Taibai with extremely sinister eyes. How dare you, Venus Taibai? What do you mean by that? Donghuang Tai was the first to angrily rebuke. One had to know that he was able to lead the demon race into the celestial court because of Yi Xian. Now Venus Taibai actually said that it was inappropriate for Yi Xian to be the celestial emperor. How could he tolerate this? Taibai, you little brat, do you have a death wish? The Nether River Patriarch said gloomily. In an instant, the originally lively atmosphere suddenly turned somber. Everyone looked at Venus Taibai gloomily. Some of the demon kings were filled with murderous intent, and it seemed like they wanted to kill Venus Taibai. Venus Taibai knew that he did not express himself clearly. His face was pale as he waved his hand repeatedly. He then bowed to Ziwei Tiandi and said, Your Majesty, what I wanted to say is that Yi Tiandi's cultivation is unprecedented. A mere title of Celestial Emperor is no longer worthy. Why don't we crown him with the title of Celestial Venerable? Wouldn't this better highlight Yi Tiandi's status in the Celestial Court? Celestial Venerable Yi? Ziwei Tiandi murmured. Then, her eyes lit up as she looked at Yi Xian and said, A worthy younger brother, Venus Taibai's suggestion is very good. You deserve the title of Celestial Venerable. Yi Xian was slightly stunned. Then he smiled. He did not care about what title he was given. Just as Venus Taibai said, it was indeed inappropriate for the Celestial Court to have two Celestial Emperors. The title of Celestial Venerable was indeed not bad. Celestial Venerable Yi. The Immortal Celestial Venerable? Yi Xian murmured. Then he smiled and said, Then I shall respectfully accept. Below, the people of the Celestial Court turned from anger to joy. They knew that they had wronged Venus Taibai. They hurriedly gave him an apologetic look. Then, they bowed to Yi Xian and called out the name of Yi Xian, Celestial Venerable. Chapter 10:10. The banquet lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. The immortals and monster kings of the Celestial Court drank until their faces were red. Finally, they all left the banquet, and the banquet came to an end. Inside the Celestial Emperor Palace. A worthy younger brother. I've already built a Celestial Emperor Palace for you in the 33rd layer of heaven. Don't ever leave again. Ziwei Ditian said sincerely. Thank you, elder brother. Yi Xian didn't refuse Ziwei Ditian's good intentions, because he had no intention of leaving. After all, he had just stepped into the 5 tribulations of the heavenly Tao, and had just nurtured the space-time seed. He still needed to consolidate his cultivation. Elder brother, why didn't I see Grand Deity Zhen Yuan at the banquet? Was he not in the Celestial Court? Yi Xian changed the topic after the two chatted for a while. Hearing Yi Xian mention Jin Yuanzi, Ziwei Tiandi sighed and said, A worthy younger brother, you may not know this, but after you passed the position of Celestial Emperor to me, I became a heavenly Tao saint. I personally invited Master to join the Celestial Court. Unfortunately, he's used to being carefree, and he's also afraid of people gossiping, so he refused my invitation. Oh. Yi Xian nodded slowly, but there was a strange look in his eyes. Elder brother, I have something to say, but I don't know if I should say it. Yi Xian was silent for 3 breaths, then looked at Ziwei Ditian. You and I are brothers. You can say whatever you want. Ziwei Ditian was startled at first, then laughed. If one day, someone close to you wants you to deal with me, will you agree? Yi Xian Ditian asked softly. Someone close to you? Deal with you? Hearing Yi Xian's words, Ziwei was stunned. He didn't understand the meaning of Yi Xian's words, but he still said solemnly, You and I are as close as brothers. You are the closest person to me. How could I do anything to you? I said, what if? Yi Xian looked straight at Ziwei. This made Ziwei's heart tremble. She knew that Yi Xian was not joking with her. That's impossible. Even if he's someone close to me, Ziwei, if he wants to be your enemy, I'll definitely stop him, even if I have to kill him myself, Ziwei said solemnly. All right. Yi Xian slowly nodded and said, Elder brother, I hope you will remember what you said today. A worthy younger brother, is there something you haven't told me? You can tell me. With our current cultivations, who in the 3 realms would dare to go against us? Ziwei Tian frowned slightly. He felt that Yi Xian was very strange today, making him even more unfathomable. Elder brother, there's no need to think too much about it. I'm just expressing my feelings. I hope none of this will happen. Yi Xian smiled. Ziwei was not stupid. On the contrary, he was very smart. Previously, when Yi Xian suddenly mentioned Jin Yuanzi and said such words, it was obvious that there was an inseparable relationship between them. However, Ziwei did not pursue the matter. He trusted Yi Xian, and trusted Jin Yuanzi even more, because these 2 were his close relatives, and there was no conflict between them. How could they become enemies? Yi Xian and Ziwei chatted for a while. Then Yi Xian left the Celestial Emperor Palace. Under the guidance of Venus Tai Bai, he went to the Celestial Worthy Palace in the 33rd layer of heaven. The Celestial Worthy Palace in the 33rd layer of heaven. Thousands of strands of auspicious energy, auspicious and colorful. Immortal clouds drifted in the sky. The Celestial Worthy Palace was grand and majestic. Under the illumination of the stars in the sky, it appeared extremely bright. Celestial Worthy Palace. This is the Celestial Worthy Palace that Her Majesty Ziwei built for you. Venus Taibai bowed and said, Venus Taibai, come with me. Yi Xian said faintly, and strolled into the Celestial Worthy Palace. Venus Taibai's eyes moved, and he quickly followed Yi Xian's footsteps. Inside the Celestial Worthy Palace. Sir. When Yi Xian entered the Celestial Worthy Palace, Fatso Huang and Lin Feiyan were already waiting there. The 2 of them bowed to Yi Xian, and Lin Feiyan looked at Yi Xian in awe. Jinxing, tell me about it. Yi Xian sat cross-legged in the void. He looked at Venus Taibai indifferently, and Venus Taibai quickly bowed and said, Old Minister did not forget what you asked me to do. Venus Taibai spoke slowly, and described everything that had happened to Ziwei Tiandi over the past tens of thousands of years. So, Zheng Yuanzi and Landia really did not come to the Celestial Court after Brother Ziwei became the Celestial Emperor? Yi Xian frowned slightly. Old Minister is telling the truth. Zhen Yuan Grand Deity and Dao Lord Landia have indeed never come to the Celestial Court. However, there is one thing that Old Minister does not know, if I should say. Venus Taibai paused for a moment. Speak. Yi Xian's eyes widened. 20,000 years ago, a Taoist child came to the 5th manor of Longevity Mountain. It was Zhen Yuanzi who sent an invitation to Her Majesty Ziwei. He said that he wanted to invite Her Majesty Ziwei to the 5th Manor's Dao Discussion Conference. Venus Taibai lowered his voice. Did you see what was written on the invitation? Yi Xian looked at Venus Taibai indifferently. Hee. Venus Taibai smiled proudly. A golden invitation appeared in his hand. He then bowed and handed it to Yi Xian. When you left the Celestial Court, you instructed the Old Minister to investigate everything related to Jin Yuanzi and Landia. The Old Minister never dared to forget. The Old Minister has already made a copy of Zhen Yuanzi's invitation. Please take a look. Looking at Venus Taibai's eager expression, Yi Xian nodded approvingly and said, You did well. My trust in you was not in vain. As Yi Xian spoke, he held the invitation in his hand and flipped through it. As expected, after 3 breaths, Yi Xian turned the invitation into ashes. His entire person became gloomy, and a cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. The content of the invitation was very simple, and there were no problems. It was just that Zhen Yuanzi missed his disciple, Ziwei, and invited him to the Tao discussion conference of the 5th manner. However, there was a message that revealed something different. Zhen Yuanzi's invitation vaguely revealed his yearning for the 2 ultimate formations of the celestial court. He was an ancestor of earthly immortals, and was extremely passionate about the Tao of formations. However, he lamented that he had no chance to see the method of setting up the 2 ultimate formations of heaven and earth. It was really his biggest regret. Although Zhen Yuanzi did not explicitly mention to Ziwei that he wanted to see the 2 ultimate formations of heaven and earth in the invitation. However, Zhen Yuanzi was Ziwei's master. Ziwei had received many favors from Zhen Yuanzi. How could he let Zhen Yuanzi have any regrets? So, Ziwei's brother brought the method of setting up the 2 ultimate formations of heaven and earth to the 5th manner? Yi Xian said in a low voice. Celestial Venerable, the 2 ultimate formations of heaven and earth are the celestial protection formations of the celestial court. Although Zhen Yuanzi is Her Majesty Ziwei's master, Her Majesty Ziwei also knows what's more important. How could she really bring the method of setting up the ultimate formations to Zhen Yuanzi and Landia? Her Majesty Ziwei only brought 2 simple methods of setting up the ultimate formations, and the core of it was not leaked. Venus Taibai hurriedly said, Haha. Yi Xian laughed, but his laughter was slightly self-deprecating. He murmured, You underestimate Zhen Yuanzi and Landia too much. Even if it's just 2 simple methods of setting up the ultimate formations of heaven and earth, they can deduce the complete 2 ultimate formations of heaven and earth. Chapter 10-11. How is this possible? Venus Taibai was stunned and could not believe it. I reward those who have done well, and punish those who have done wrong. Venus Taibai, you have done well. Just as Venus Taibai was in a daze, a bright light suddenly enveloped him. This woke Venus Taibai up, and he hurriedly sat cross-legged in the void, and began to cultivate. Dozens of breaths later, rays of zenith heaven immortal light rose around Venus Taibai. He slowly opened his eyes and hurriedly kowtowed to Yi Xian, thanking him. Thank you, Celestial Master, for granting my wish. As I said before, as long as you work for me loyally, I will not treat you unfairly. Yi Xian said indifferently, Go. If there is any more news about Zhen Yuanzi and Landia, inform me immediately. Yes, Celestial Master. Venus Taibai had stepped into the Daluo Jingxian in one fell swoop, which made him wild with joy. He bowed and left the Celestial Master Palace. Sir, is there something wrong with Zhen Yuanzi and Landia? Fatso Huang asked doubtfully. There was something wrong with them for a long time. They finally gave themselves away. Yi Xian sneered. In fact, when Nuwa attacked the Celestial Court, Zhen Yuanzi had blocked her. Yi Xian had always kept this matter in mind. How could a mere sage-to-be resist Nuwa? Moreover, since Yi Xian entered the Earth Immortal realm, many things were related to Zhen Yuanzi. Now that he thought about it carefully, Yi Xian shuddered. The first time he met Zhen Yuanzi was during his Tao discussion conference. He also met the Empyrean Fairy at the 5 Villages Taoist Temple. The 2 of them even merged in the Yin-Yang mystic realm. After that, a series of events began to occur. Zhen Yuanzi helped him propose marriage to Nuwa. Then, Nuwa issued a decree to select a son-in-law for the Empyrean Fairy. He personally went to Nuwa's palace and formed a karma with Nuwa. Also, Yuanshi Tianzuan and Nuwa joined hands to kill him, and Tong Tian was unable to free himself to save him. On that day, Zhen Yuanzi and Landia were also present. When Yuanshi Tianzuan was about to kill him, and he was about to die, a terrifying force counteracted Yuanshi Tianzuan. All of this was in Yi Xian's mind, but he was not sure. Back then, Yi Xian passed the position of Celestial Emperor to Ziwei. The Empyrean Fairy had asked him why. If it was only to repay Ziwei for saving his life, the position of Celestial Emperor was enough. Why did he have to give the opportunity to become a sage to Ziwei? Yi Xian did not answer the Empyrean fairy's question. Repaying the favor was only one of the reasons. Yi Xian's real purpose was to lure the snake out of its hole and see if his guess was correct. Today, Zhen Yuanzi and Lan Ye finally gave themselves away. Although Yi Xian hoped that his guess was wrong, all the clues pointed to the ancestor of earthly immortals, Immortal Zhen Yuan. That's right. Yi Xian never trusted anyone. He only trusted himself. He was even using Ziwei, and had Venus Taibai monitor his every move. However, Yi Xian's repaying the favor was true, but he was also using Ziwei. There was no need to talk about brotherly love or scheming, because Yi Xian only recognized two brothers in this world. One was Liu Bai, and the other was Sun Wukong, who transformed the Tao for him. He did not trust anyone else. He only half-trusted Fatso Huang, let alone Ziwei Tiandi. Of course, Yi Xian also knew that Ziwei had no intention of harming him, and had always treated him as a brother. He was only being used by Zhen Yuanzi. Thump, thump, thump. Yi Xian's 5 fingers tapped the table in front of him, constantly making rhythmic sounds. Obviously, he was thinking about something. Do you think that you have a better chance of winning, just because you have 2 great ultimate formations of heaven and earth? Yi Xian whispered coldly, and the table in front of him suddenly turned into ashes. Then I'll see what kind of ability you have. Don't let me down. Yi Xian's gaze was fixed, and a hint of cruelty flashed through his eyes. Sir. Looking at Yi Xian talking to himself, Fatso Huang anxiously called out. It's okay, you don't have to worry. Yi Xian smiled slightly, and only then did Fatso Huang feel relieved. Lin Feiyun. Yi Xian finally set his gaze on Yi Xian. This also made Lin Feiyun extremely cleverly kneel at Yi Xian's feet, and even kowtow loudly. You should know that the hatred between you and Li Yuan is all because of me. Now, do you hate me very much? Yi Xian said softly. This disciple doesn't dare. Lin Feiyun was extremely terrified. He touched the ground with his forehead and said tremblingly, Feiyun was originally a mere mortal. If it wasn't for Sky Sovereign's support, perhaps I would have already died of old age in the mortal world. How could I have today's immortal fate? How could this disciple dare to resent you? It's all Li Yuan's fault. This dog doesn't know what's good for him. He has wasted your painstaking efforts to train him, and instead, he hates you to the extreme. As long as I, Lin Feiyun, am alive, I will definitely make him die a horrible death. Only then can I repay Sky Sovereign for the immortal fate that you have bestowed upon this disciple. Good. Yi Xian smiled. He looked at Lin Feiyun with even more satisfaction. Lowly as dust, shameless, inverting right and wrong, mixing right and wrong, mixing right and wrong. Moreover, your heart is black and your hands are vicious. You are indeed a talent. Yi Xian laughed loudly. As the saying goes, a great man has to be ruthless. In Yi Xian's eyes, he didn't care for this so-called stubborn bone, because this was an idiotic method. Only being able to submit and stand tall was something that a true expert should possess. Without a doubt, Lin Feiyun had the elements to become an expert, because he was able to submit and stand tall. He was extremely shameless and didn't care about dignity or face at all. He also knew that clinging tightly to Yi Xian's thigh, even if he had to become Yi Xian's dog, this was where he was smart, and it was also an important reason for his future growth. Are you willing to take me as your master? Suddenly, Yi Xian stared straight at Lin Feiyun. On the other hand, Lin Feiyun was stunned on the spot by this sudden pleasant surprise, and it took him a long time to recover from his shock. Sir, you? Fatso Huang was astounded. He never imagined that Yi Xian would actually want to take Lin Feiyun as his disciple. This simply shocked him to the extreme, and he wanted to oppose it with all his might. After all, Yi Xian had never taken a disciple in the past 200,000 years. This Lin Feiyun's fortune could be said to be number 1 in the 3 realms. Yet he had actually been taken as a disciple by Yi Xian. However, Fatso Huang was extremely opposed to taking Lin Feiyun as his disciple. What kind of person was Lin Feiyun? He was treacherous, sinister, and shameless. He was someone who could bite back at any time. If Yi Xian took such a person as his disciple, then who knew what sort of trouble would arise in the future? Unfortunately, before Fatso Huang could persuade Yi Xian shook his head at him. This caused Fatso Huang to be unable to persuade Yi Xian, because he knew that no one could change Yi Xian's mind. Actually, it was Fatso Huang who was worrying too much. If he could think of this problem, then how could Yi Xian not think of it? Yi Xian wasn't afraid that Lin Feiyun would betray him, nor was he worried that Lin Feiyun would dare to bite back at him, because Yi Xian possessed the heart of invincibility, and he could suppress everything. To put it bluntly, if taking in Lin Feiyun would cause Yi Xian to worry about Lin Feiyun's backlash, then he wouldn't have been able to reach where he was today. His temperament was a little too weak. The strong were fearless, and the strong were fearless. Only in this way could one open up a true path of invincibility. Yi Xian possessed the heart of invincibility, and he could suppress all things in the world, let alone a mere Lin Feiyun. If Yi Xian was afraid of Lin Feiyun, then wouldn't that be the greatest mockery of his journey? Chapter 10-12. The Immortal scripture was a chaotic technique that seemed to come from outside the three realms. It was also Yi Xian's main cultivation technique. He had used this technique to prove his Tao through strength. On this day, Lin Feiyun knelt at Yi Xian's feet and formally acknowledged Yi Xian as his master. He even swore a heart demon oath that he would never betray Yi Xian. Otherwise, his soul would scatter, and he would never be reincarnated. Yi Xian only smiled faintly at Lin Feiyun's oath. He did not take it seriously, because he knew very well what kind of person Lin Feiyun was. Yi Xian also had his own goals. Whether it was Lin Feiyun or Li Yuyan, they were only his chess pieces, and this was their fate. Subsequently, Yi Xian passed the immortal scripture to Lin Feiyun, and even bestowed him with a golden core, peach of immortality, and a series of treasures. He also set a 30,000-year deadline for Lin Feiyun. Within 30,000 years, Lin Feiyun had to cultivate to the quasi-sage realm. If he did not step into the quasi-sage realm in 30,000 years, Yi Xian would personally take his life. It was as difficult as ascending to the heavens for a mortal to step into the quasi-sage realm in 30,000 years. No one wanted to die, especially people like Lin Feiyun. He valued his life more than anything else, and he had no other choice. Lin Feiyun still agreed, because he believed that he would succeed. This was also his only chance to change his fate. Disciple will take his leave. Lin Feiyun bowed, and left the celestial worthy palace, because he wanted to cultivate the immortal scripture as soon as possible. 30,000 years seemed to be a long time, but to step into the quasi-sage realm was almost an impossible task. Every minute and second was extremely precious to Lin Feiyun, and he did not want to waste any time. Seeing that Lin Feiyun had already left, Fatso Huang said with a worried expression, "Mister, isn't it a little inappropriate for you to pass the immortal scripture to this person?" "There's nothing wrong with it. The immortal scripture I gave him lacks the forbidden chapter," Yi Xian said faintly. "I see." Hearing Yi Xian's words, Fatso Huang finally felt relieved. However, he was slightly puzzled. But Lin Feiyun does not have the forbidden chapter. With the incomplete immortal scripture, how could he cultivate to the quasi-sage realm in 30,000 years? Haha. Yi Xian smiled and said in an unpredictable voice, "Don't forget that Li Yoyun's boundless secular technique is also incomplete. But didn't he quickly cultivate the first level? If Lin Feiyun cannot surpass Li Yuyan, then he is of no use to me. I will naturally kill him after 30,000 years." In fact, Yi Xian did not tell Fatso Huang one thing. Since Li Yuyan cultivated the boundless secular world technique, he would definitely attract Luo Ho's attention. The two of them would definitely cross paths, because both of them cultivated the same technique. This was a difficult problem that Luo Ho had given Luo Ho. It was a challenge to see if Luo Ho dared to accept it. Similarly, Yi Xian had his own plans for taking Lin Feiyun as his disciple and imparting the immortal scripture to him. As long as Lin Feiyun could cultivate the immortal scripture and step into the quasi-sage realm, this person would be of great use to him. At the same time, in the earthly immortal realm of the boundless secular world, Luo Ho felt something. He looked up at the 33rd celestial court, and his eyes seemed to pierce through the void to look at someone. Yi Xian, well done. Things are getting more and more interesting. Luoho smiled and whispered, Gu Beichen, our fate as master and disciple has come to an end. You can leave now. Luoho strolled away in the sky. Gu Beichen's expression changed slightly, but he did not follow Luoho. He knew that since Luoho had asked him to leave, it would be useless even if he wanted to follow him. Go back and tell Yi Xian that I've accepted his challenge. After 30,000 years, I'll personally visit him to ask for guidance. Luoho drifted away, but his voice echoed in Gu Beichen's ears. Time flew by and the world changed. 10,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. 10,000 years. 10,000 years was an extremely long time even for immortals. However, it was only a short period of time for the three realms. The three realms were peaceful and peaceful. Ever since the 33rd celestial court ruled the three realms of heaven, earth and man, all orthodoxies, big and small, submitted to it. Even the disciples of the sages did not dare to come out. The Chan sect did not appear in the three realms. The spirited mountain of the west had already closed its doors. Even the so-called heavenly path sages did not make any moves. As for the liches and demons, they did not appear in the world. 10,000 years of peace and harmony. The celestial court was the most powerful in the world. No one dared to anger the celestial court's prestige, because it was no different from courting death. The heavenly Tao saint, the celestial emperor of Purple Star, and many quasi-saints presided over the heavenly court. There were tens of thousands of Zenith Heaven golden immortals, and the rest of the immortals and demon kings were like carps crossing the river. The 33 layers of heavenly court welcomed its most powerful peak. However, peace was always temporary. On a certain day after 10,000 years, the holy light of Tongtian shone down from the 33rd heaven. A sage's decree was sent to the celestial court, causing an uproar in the three realms. No one knew which heavenly path sage had sent this decree, and no one knew what was written on it. However, on this day, the 33rd celestial court was extremely shaken. 81 bells rang from the celestial court. Inside the celestial worthy palace, Yi Xian sat cross-legged in the void. Wisps of black holy light pervaded his body. His entire body seemed to have melted into the void. Black lotuses bloomed and withered around him. The rumbling sound of the great Tao came from his body. Buzz. Space-time changed and the void distorted. A sapling flickered between Yi Xian's eyebrows. This sapling flickered with silver light and swayed between his eyebrows. The surrounding space collapsed to the extreme and began to strangely recover. After 10,000 years, Yi Xian's cultivation of the 5 tribulations of the heavenly path had completely stabilized. The space-time seed had also sprouted along with his cultivation. Yi Xian's understanding of the power of space-time had reached a new level. Everything was developing in a good direction. These 10,000 years were extremely important to Yi Xian. It allowed him to quietly advance towards the 6 tribulations of the heavenly path. What should come will come. The karma owed must be repaid. Time seemed to have stopped and space seemed to have frozen. Yi Xian slowly opened his eyes. A cold voice came from his mouth. His eyes were like large stars spinning. The door of the celestial worthy palace rumbled open. The entire celestial court requests an audience with the celestial worthy palace. Outside the celestial worthy palace, Ziwei Tiandi stood there with the saint's decree in her hand. Everyone in the celestial court knelt on the ground and shouted the name of Yi Xian, the celestial worthy palace. I already know. All of you can leave. Yi Xian's hoarse voice came from the celestial worthy palace. The saint's decree in Ziwei Tiandi's hand turned into a golden light and entered the celestial worthy palace. We will take our leave. The entire celestial court bowed and retreated. Ziwei Tiandi wanted to enter the celestial worthy palace, but the door of the celestial worthy palace rumbled shut. This also let Ziwei know that Yi Xian did not want her to be involved in this matter. Chapter 10:13. A worthy younger brother I? Ziwei Tiandi hesitated. Elder brother is the lord of the 3 realms. You shouldn't care about the disputes between saints. I owe Tongtian karma, so I naturally have to repay it personally. The door to the celestial worthy palace finally closed. Yi Xian's hoarse voice echoed in Ziwei Tiandi's ears. Rumble. On this day, the 33rd celestial court rumbled. A great Tao of Tongtian soared into the sky from the celestial worthy palace, heading straight outside the 33rd heaven. It was also on this day that the weather changed. Thunder rumbled for billions of miles. Yi Xian, who had not appeared in the world for 10,000 years, walked out of the celestial worthy palace. He stepped into the sky and went straight outside the 33rd heaven. Only then did the phenomena in the world gradually disappear. Something big is going to happen, Ziwei Tiandi said solemnly in the celestial Tharch palace. He watched as Yi Xian entered the starry sky outside the 33rd heaven. The immortals and demon monarchs behind him frowned deeply. This was because everyone knew that the owner of the saint's decree, that came from outside the 33rd heaven, was one of the three pure ones, Tongtian. Outside the 33rd heaven, the stars were vast, and the sea of stars churned. Yi Xian strolled through the vast starry sky. With every step he took, the stars behind him instantly disappeared. Terrifying ripples rippled beneath his feet, causing the sea of stars behind Yi Xian to churn violently. It was an extremely terrifying scene. The cause of the past was the effect of today. Back when Yi Xian was still weak, if not for the Tongtian's repeated attacks, he would have died long ago. Therefore, Yi Xian owed the Tongtian a lot. This was the saint's favor, and the saint's karma. Today, when Yi Xian stepped into the heavenly Tao's 5 tribulations, it was time for him to return the Tongtian's karma. The sea of stars rippled as golden light shone resplendently. Large stars floated in the sea of stars, and a golden path led to the depths of the sea of stars. A palace that floated in the sea of stars appeared in Yi Xian's eyes. Azure Palace. Yi Xian took a step forward and appeared in front of Green Turing Palace. 2 Tao children bowed towards Yi Xian. Sect Master has been waiting for Sky Sovereign for a long time. Sky Sovereign, please come in. Rumble. The door to Green Turing Palace rumbled open. Yi Xian nodded slowly and entered Green Turing Palace at that moment. Inside the Azure Palace. You've come. Tongtian sat cross-legged in the void as the 4 Immortal Extermination swords circled around him. The Immortal Extermination formation floated above his head as wisps of heavenly Tao's killing divine secrets filled the entire Azure Palace. I'm here. Yi Xian strolled to the front of Tongtian. He slowly sat down cross-legged with a smile on his face. In the Battle of the Gods, Tongtian left Green Turing Palace in defeat. This is the greatest humiliation of my Tongtian life. It also caused my Jie school to be unable to recover from this setback and become the greatest laughingstock in the world, Tongtian said in a low voice. I understand. Yi Xian nodded lightly. The humiliation of the past shall be settled today. Tongtian's eyes were cold as his voice reverberated throughout the entire Azure Palace. If you wish to fight, I'll fight with you. However, this battle will overturn the universe and might even cause the world to shatter. Even heavenly Tao saints are in danger of perishing. Have you thought it through? Yi Xian said indifferently. Fellow Taoist, please help me. Clang! Clang! The 4 Immortal Extermination swords clanged as Tongtian cupped his hands and bowed to Yi Xian. Without Tongtian, there would be no Yi Xian. Today, I'll return the karma of the past. Please. Yi Xian slowly stood up and said, Ha 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 ha. Good good good. Yi Daoyu, the day I've been waiting for has finally come. Tongtian laughed maniacally as the door to Azure Turing Palace rumbled open. A golden cloud grew beneath Tongtian's feet. Let's go. Rumble. On this day, the 33 heavens rumbled as the stars within billions of miles shook uncontrollably. Strands of resplendent galaxies rose into the sky. It was also on this day that the Grand Master of Heaven and Yi Xian walked out of the roaming Jade Palace. The two of them walked in the vast and boundless sky. Their murderous aura filled the air, causing the 3 realms to rumble and shake. Let's fight. Tongtian pierced through the ground, shaking the past and present. In the vast and boundless starry sky, the 4 Immortal Extermination swords expanded to thousands of miles in size. They stretched across the boundless starry sky, as the massive immortal extermination array diagram covered the entire starry sky, plunging the three realms into endless darkness. At the same time, Western Pure Land beneath the Bodhi tree, the two sages of the West frowned as the Buddhist light around them became extremely chaotic. Tongtian's murderous voice constantly reverberated in the Western Pure Land, causing it to tremble uncontrollably. Senior brother, this? Kundi frowned. He could completely sense Tongtian's terrifying aura. It had already locked onto the two of them. Sigh. Jieyin let out a long sigh. He slowly got up from under the Bodhi tree and said with a bitter look on his face, "The seeds that were planted in the past will bear fruit today. This battle cannot be avoided. It is also the karma between you and me. Naturally, we will have to settle it ourselves." But, senior brother, Yi Xian. Kundi hesitated. There was a heavy look in his eyes. Clearly, Yi Xian had brought him great pressure. Kundi did not want to face this ferocious person. Junior brother, we can't avoid it. Although Yi Xian is powerful, you and I are also heavenly path sages. Moreover, it is not just the two of us this time. Don't forget Lao Tzu and Yuanshi Tianzuan of the Three Pure Ones, Jieyin said softly. I see. Kundi's eyes lit up. How could he forget Yuanshi Tianzuan and Lao Tzu? How could the four heavenly path sages fear Tongtian and Yi Xian? Let's go. It is time to settle this karma with Tongtian. The two sages of the West left beneath the Bodhi tree and left the Western Pure Land with one step. 8 Visions Palace. Dao Tianzuan and Lao Tzu lowered their eyes. Yuanshi Tianzuan was gloomy and silent. An oppressive atmosphere grew in 8 Visions Palace. Junior brother Tongtian. Does he think that we will be afraid of him just because he invited Yi Xian to help? Yuanshi Tianzuan roared angrily. Junior brother, Yi Xian is no longer the same as before. I can no longer see through his cultivation. You must not be careless, Lao Tzu said solemnly. Senior brother, are you not confident? Yuanshi Tianzuan asked in astonishment. He could feel Lao Tzu's heavy aura, which shocked him greatly. Although I can feel that his cultivation is on par with mine, I don't know why, but I feel uneasy. I'm afraid that this will be a calamity for both of us. Lao Tzu sighed. This? Yuanshi Tianzuan's heart sank. However, the Three Pure Ones share the same origin. Junior brother Tongtian. And you are all transformed from Panga's primordial spirit. Although junior brother Tongtian resents us, as long as we bow to him, there is still room for negotiation. Lao Tzu explained. Bow to him? Yuanshi Tianzuan muttered to himself. Then he suddenly roared. Impossible, I will never bow to him. I want to see how junior brother Tongtian will settle the karma of the past with Yi Xian's help. Yuanshi Tianzuan took a step forward and disappeared. Lao Tzu frowned and sighed helplessly. He knew that this battle was unavoidable. As the leader of the Three Pure Ones, there was nothing he could do. Chapter 10:14. The massacre of life shook the heavens. 4 heavenly Tao-killing swords spanned across millions of miles of space, and the immortal slaying array covered the boundless sea of stars. 2 majestic figures stood on top of the immortal slaying array. Their eyes shone through the 3 realms of heaven, earth, and man, causing all living things to tremble in fear. Rumble! The chanting of the Buddha and the chanting of the heavens spread out a dazzling golden light in the vast sky. The 2 saints of the West floated over on auspicious clouds. Shadows of Buddhas filled the sky behind the 2 of them, and the vast aura of the heavenly path rushed over. The aura of primal chaos circulated, and the starry sky within millions of miles was distorted. Boundless purple clouds rolled over, and the sound of the great Tao rumbled. The heavenly lord of primordial beginning and heavenly lord of Tao and virtue were walking over. Junior brother Tongtian. Yuanshi Tianzuan waved the Panga banner in his hand, and terrifying ripples bloomed. Countless stars were turned into ashes by the Panga banner. Amitabha. The evil karma of the past shall be settled today. The 2 sages of the West put their palms together, and the Buddha light illuminated the void. They chanted mysterious scriptures, and the aura of the heavenly Tao sages rose. Yi Daoyu, this is the karma between us heavenly Tao sages. Please don't get involved, Yi Daoyu. Lao Tzu rode over on his green ox and faced Yi Xian. Yi Xian was dressed in black, and his 3,000 strands of black hair hung behind his head. He had his hands behind his back as he looked at his father. His eyes were calm from beginning to end, and he didn't release any terrifying might. Buzz! Heaven and earth reversed and everything collapsed. A pair of black eyes rotated in Yi Xian's eyes. The green ox under Lao Tzu suddenly let out a sad cry, and it turned into a cloud of dust and disappeared. This was Yi Xian's best answer to Lao Tzu. No matter how good Lao Tzu's temper was, he would still be enraged when his green ox was killed. Wisps of heavenly Tao's aura burst out, and an extremely terrifying Tao sound was rumbling. If Tong Tian wants to fight, I'll fight with him. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Yi Xian said indifferently. Yi Xian's attitude was domineering and unparalleled. He didn't take Lao Tzu seriously at all, and didn't give Lao Tzu any face. Good. It seems that fellow Taoist Ye's cultivation has already reached the great Tao realm. You don't take me seriously at all, Lao Tzu said furiously. Junior brother Tong Tian, before you settle the karma of the past, can you listen to me? All of a sudden, Lao Tzu turned around and looked at Tong Tian. What do you have to say, senior brother? Tong Tian said coldly. Junior brother Tong Tian, you Yuanshi, and I are all formed from the primordial spirit of the great god Pangu, and we come from the same sect. Can't we let go of the grudges of the past and fight to the death? Lao Tzu said with a frown. Ha ha. Tong Tian laughed wildly. He looked coldly at Lao Tzu and said, My good senior brother, you know that the three of us come from the same sect? Then why did you side with Yuanshi during the war of the investiture of the gods? Why didn't you say that we came from the same sect? Tong Tian roared. This? Lao Tzu's expression changed slightly. He then sighed helplessly and said, Junior brother Tong Tian, the war of the investiture of the gods was decided by the heavenly Tao. You know that the Chan sect is going to prosper. So why do you have to go against the heavenly Tao? I'm just following the heavenly Tao. What a joke. What do you mean by going against the heavenly Tao? We are all heavenly Tao saints, and we represent the will of the heavenly Tao. However, you helped Yuanshi and made me lose face. You even made me the biggest laughingstock among the heavenly Tao saints. Today I, Tong Tian, will repay this karma, Tong Tian retorted coldly. Fellow Tong Tian, why do you have to talk so much nonsense with them? Yi Xian said indifferently. Kill. Sect leader Tong Tian laughed coldly and wildly. The immortal slaying array shook violently, causing the starry sky to rumble and rumble. The four immortal slaying swords stretched across millions of miles of starry sky, and slashed directly toward Yuanshi Tianzuan, and the two saints of the west. Tong Tian, you little brat, you're too presumptuous. Yuanshi Tianzuan's cultivation was not weaker than Tong Tian's. The Panga banner shook the starry sky, and directly smashed toward the four immortal execution swords. Senior brother Yuanshi, we're here to help you. The two saints of the west were shameless. The light of Buddha exploded, and the shadows of Buddhas appeared in the sky. They directly turned millions of miles of heaven and earth into the 3,000 Buddhist kingdoms. The light of Buddha that filled the sky and earth fell toward Tong Tian. Good timing. Tong Tian laughed wildly. His entire body exuded boundless hostility. The immortal execution formation rumbled, and the murderous intent burst forth, instantly meeting the three saints. Bang! 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 The starry sky collapsed, and all things were destroyed. The four saints had done their best, and the heavenly Tao's murderous intent was enough to destroy the world. The four immortal slaying swords stood proudly in the starry sky, unleashing sword lights that stretched for tens of millions of miles. Yuanshi Tianzuan waved the Panga banner, and unleashed a terrifying chaos power. The two saints of the west cast out a boundless Buddhist art, and each of their attacks shattered the starry river. Heaven and earth were in chaos, and the starry sky was shattered. The terrifying power that burst forth shattered the starry sky, and directly spread toward the three realms. Rumble! Heaven and earth collapsed, and all things were destroyed. The first to suffer was the celestial court. The power of the four saints was so terrifying that it directly sent Mount Buzhou flying millions of miles away. Fortunately, The celestial court was overseen by Ziwei Tiandi, who was a heavenly Tao saint. Moreover, the celestial court was protected by the heaven and earth arrays, so it did not suffer much damage. Even though the 33 levels of the heavenly courts were safe and sound, the heavens and the earth in the 3 dimensions had suffered an extremely terrifying blow. The 4 continents were shaking violently while extremely terrifying rifts that seemed like spiderwebs had appeared on the boundless ground. The mountains were collapsing, the rivers were flowing in reverse, and even the boundless waters of the 4 seas were flowing into the sky. The billions of shrimp soldiers and crab generals were suffering heavy casualties, and the waters of the 4 seas were turning scarlet. But it was not over yet. The Earth Immortal realm was sinking, and the ground was constantly cracking. Magma from the depths of the Earth's core was spewing out, and then spread outward. Countless living beings died tragically in this catastrophe. Bang! 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 Large stars fell, and meteorites came from the sky. The broken stars dragged long trails of fire as they smashed into the 4 continents, causing the scene of all things being destroyed. Outside the 33rd heaven, Tongtian was completely deranged. He unleashed his terrifying cultivation to the extreme, and crazily fought Yuanshi Tianzuan and the 2 saints of the West. Yuanshi Tianzuan was also extremely angry, because he would never bow down to Tongtian. He also unleashed his strongest power to fight back. The 2 saints of the West did not hold back at all, and continuously attacked Tongtian with the 1000 Buddha technique. The so-called mercy of Buddhism had long been forgotten by the 2 of them. Stop, all of you, stop! Dao Tianzuan and Lao Tzu roared in anger. They had witnessed the tragic situation of the lower realm. If they continued to fight like this, the 3 realms would definitely be shattered by them. This also made Lao Tzu unleash an extremely terrifying heavenly Dao Qi, wanting to stop this catastrophe from happening. Chapter 10:15. Thump, thump, thump. Suddenly, the sound of heavy footsteps could be heard. Before Lao Tzu could stop them, Yi Xian was already standing in front of him, looking at him indifferently. Yi Daoyu, don't forget that you were the one who created the 33 celestial court. Do you want to watch the 3 realms be destroyed? Lao Tzu shouted angrily. Without destruction, there can be no construction. The cycle of heaven and earth, the cycle of life and death. These are all common principles of the great Tao. I'm just following the trend of the times, Yi Xian said indifferently. You? Lao Tzu's face flushed red. He knew that no matter how he tried to persuade Yi Xian, the catastrophe of heaven and earth was unavoidable. He could only suppress Yi Xian to stop the battle between the Tongtian and the others. Yi Xian, I didn't want to be your enemy, but you've gone too far. Today, I have no choice but to suppress you. Rumble. Lao Tzu flipped his hand, and a 9-story pagoda appeared in his hand. Black and yellow qi filled the pagoda, and an aura as heavy as the sky rumbled. But this was not the end. Lao Tzu summoned a black and white formation diagram, which rumbled and rotated in the starry sky. Even the stars in 100 million miles were covered by the light emitted by this formation diagram. Tai Chi diagram? Tiandi Xianhuang Linglong Pagoda? Yi Xian's eyes lit up. He had long heard that Lao Tzu had 2 great natural treasures. One was the Tai Chi diagram, and the other was the Tiandi Xianhuang Linglong Pagoda. These 2 treasures could definitely be called saints' treasures, and had incredible power. Come, let me see how you're going to suppress me. Yi Xian laughed loudly. Ever since he stepped into the 5 tribulations of the heavenly Tao, no one had attacked him. He also wanted to measure who was stronger between him and Lao Tzu. Arrogant. Lao Tzu was the leader of the 3 pure ones. Apart from Tao ancestor Hong Jun, he had almost no opponents. Yi Xian's casual attitude immediately angered Lao Tzu. Take this. Rumble. The Taiji diagram rumbled as it spun, pouring out an extremely terrifying Taoist connotation that came crashing down on Yi Xian. The holy light that could suppress all things circulated on the Taiji diagram, and even the surrounding starry sky was shattered into a vacuum. Clang! The starry sky collapsed, the heavens shook, and the Taiji diagram smashed onto Yi Xian's body. Yi Xian's entire body was smashed hundreds of millions of miles away. Yi Xian. This scene shocked Tong Tian. Although he had been fighting crazily with Yuan Shi Tianzuan and the other two, he had also been paying attention to Yi Xian and Lao Tzu's movements. However, he never expected that Lao Tzu would be able to send Yi Xian flying just by using the Taiji diagram. At this moment, it was unknown whether Yi Xian was dead or alive. It's okay. Suddenly, a faint voice came from the depths of the starry sky. Yi Xian actually returned and faced Lao Tzu across space again. There was not a trace of injury on his body, and he looked extremely calm. How is this possible? Lao Tzu's eyes instantly froze, and his heart trembled violently. He could not believe his eyes. No one knew better than Lao Tzu how powerful the Taiji diagram was. This was a Khanate supreme treasure that nurtured his Dharma and Tao. How could it not cause any damage to Yi Xian? Come, let me see what else you're capable of. Yi Xian waved his hand at Lao Tzu with a smile on his face. Just now, he didn't dodge the attack of the Taiji diagram, because he wanted to test just how strong his physical body was. When Yi Xian was in the 4 tribulations of the heavenly Tao, his physical body could already tear Nuwa apart. When he stepped into the 5 tribulations of the heavenly Tao, his physical body underwent another qualitative transformation. However, Yi Xian could not be sure how strong it was. But now, Yi Xian was hit by the Taiji diagram. He completely understood how strong his physical body was, and his confidence grew even stronger. Invincible born invincible. These words were as heavy as the firmament. They fully explained how terrifying Yi Xian's physical body was. Even if Lao Tzu attacked him with the Taiji diagram, his physical body would not suffer any damage. This was the terror of using strength to prove one's Tao. Don't be so arrogant. Lao Tzu's face was solemn, and a trace of uneasiness rose in his heart. However, he was the leader of the 3 pure ones, and also the first sage of the heavenly Tao. It was impossible for him to bow down to Yi Xian. Rumble. The Taiji diagram buzzed and rotated again, and a terrifying heavenly Tao holy light rose. Under Lao Tzu's control, the Taiji diagram once again smashed toward Yi Xian with the power to suppress all things. Clang, clang, clang. Something extremely terrifying happened. The Taiji diagram kept smashing onto Yi Xian's body, but his body did not move. Instead, the Taiji diagram kept producing loud rumbling sounds. Suddenly Yi Xian moved. He raised his right arm, and it was as if he was lifting the entire firmament. That resplendent fist aura lit up the entire starry sky. When he swung his right arm, the starry sky within thousands of miles collapsed, and he sent the Taiji diagram flying with a punch. Scram! Boom! With a punch, the starry sky exploded. The Taiji diagram was sent flying by Yi Xian, and the heavenly Tao holy light that permeated the Taiji diagram exploded. However, this was not the end. Dong! Yi Xian took a step forward, and it was as if time and space had been reversed. His entire body instantly appeared in front of Lao Tzu, and his palm that could prop up the heavens and suppress the earth slammed down towards Lao Tzu. Retreat! Lao Tzu's expression changed drastically. He did not see how Yi Xian appeared in front of him. Facing Yi Xian's all-suppressing attack, he felt extremely helpless. His entire body turned into a wisp of clear air and disappeared. He did not dare to take this attack head-on. Rumble! Yi Xian's punch pierced through the heaven and earth realms. That resplendent fist aura turned into a Milky Way that rolled towards the lower realm. Rumble! The 3 realms shook, and all living things collapsed. Yi Xian's attack broke the southern viewing continent into 2, and millions of miles of land sank. Endless lava spewed out from the core of the earth, and it caused an unimaginable destruction to the southern viewing continent. Living things were wailing, and all living things were being destroyed. The lament of the dead was playing in the heaven and earth. Just because of the battle between the heavenly Tao saints, it was as if the 3 realms had been pierced through. Outside the 33rd heaven, Yi Xian had his hands behind his back, and a look of contempt appeared on his face. He was looking at Lao Tzu from afar. Aren't you a compassionate person? Aren't you a moral saint? Just because you dodged my punch, you caused more than half of the southern viewing continent to be destroyed. Is this your so-called benevolent morality? Yi Xian laughed sarcastically. You? Lao Tzu's face and ears turned red. Although he had an indifferent temperament, in the face of Yi Xian's undisguised sarcasm, he was simply too ashamed to show his face, and did not know how to refute. Yi Xian, you little brat, you've gone too far. If I don't suppress you today, I won't be the leader of the three pure ones. Lao Tzu was angry. He was really angry, and he was roaring hysterically. Ever since he was born, no one had dared to humiliate him like this. Heaven and earth are black and yellow. The universe is desolate. Suppress. Lao Tzu's hands were forming a seal, and the Tiandi Xianhuang Linglong pagoda rumbled. The aura that could trap the heavens and suppress the earth spread out, and then suddenly suppressed Yi Xian. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.